Hey, this local leaders podcast you're about to hear with Woody Overton, creator and host of Real Life, Real Crime, the podcast, is brought to you in part by Southern Oaks Title. From contract to close, Southern Oaks Title can take the stress out of your next closing. Give them a call at 769-5032 for your next commercial or residential closing. Southern Oaks Title. Close with someone who cares. Now get ready, because we're about to get real with the wolf himself, Woody Overton. Thank you so much for being here. I'm a really big fan, and this is actually an honor for me.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah. Glad to have you here. We're going to talk about your book. We're going to talk about where the podcast idea all kind of formed and came from, and anything else you want to tell me. So with that, welcome, Woody Overton.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you so much.
So the way I discovered your podcast was we have a mutual friend, Lori Goolsby.
Yeah.
And
she's a force of nature.
Yeah, she's a force of nature. She put on Facebook at one point, check out this podcast. I think it was the first one that you did, Double Clutch.
Yeah.
Okay, so she said, check that out. And I want to circle back to all that. But before I do, I want to kind of get into your life before it went haywire with podcasting.
Right.
You have just an unbelievable life for such a young guy. Yeah. So I did my due diligence and kind of checked out what I could check out. I read your book and all those sorts of things. So I want to cover all of that. Like I was telling you before the podcast, we're going to kind of segment it out. So I'm going to talk about your early life a little bit first. And I do want to say that this segment is brought to you by Leanne's Flooring by Design, conveniently located on Florida Boulevard, Denham Springs. Leanne can service all your flooring needs. Give them a call for an appointment at 523-7004. Leanne's Flooring by Design. They stand by everything you walk on.
Excellent.
So you are from Clinton originally, is that correct?
That's correct. 6 generations of Overtons from Clinton.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a beautiful, beautiful place over there. And tell us a little bit about like your family, your mom and dad.
Both of them were trial lawyers. My mother was the first woman ever inducted into LSU's Law School Hall of Fame. My father practiced law for over 48 years. My grandfather, my dad's dad, was a judge in East Feliciana Parish till he died. And my mom's dad was the longest running district attorney in the state for East and West Feliciana for over 30-something years. He's deceased now also. But all my brothers and sisters are lawyers.
Wow.
The whole family, aunts, you name it, they're all lawyers.
I just can't imagine where your passion for the law came from.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable, and I didn't know that. So lawyers. So from an early age, you were pretty much able to kind of diagnose, looking at people and reading them and things like that. Lawyers have to do that, and of course, you discuss on your podcast with your experience in law enforcement, how it's been a great value that you can just read people.
Right. And
so I can see where that comes from. A lot of that, I believe that a lot of that we're kind of born with.
Right.
So that's amazing. I had no idea both of them were lawyers. I did read I heard you mention one time that your mother was a lawyer. So that's pretty interesting. So you went to Silliman Institute?
Silliman. Okay. Silliman. I graduated in 1988.
1988. Class of 88.
Many years ago.
Awesome. And what did you do after that?
Right out, straight into the military. Well, actually, it was in the National Guard. And then college. And then I started with the Department of Corrections. it's just been a plethora of things since then.
So let's back up and let's talk about you. Okay, so you enlisted in the Army National Guard?
That's correct.
And what did you do for them?
I was a nuclear, biological, chemical warfare specialist.
I hope all of y'all caught that. That means he's smart.
Yeah, that's actually, I did the recruiter. I went and took the test, and I wanted to be an MP. And this is a true story. And they came back and said, "No, you scored too high. We had this field we want you to go to." And he sold me the song and dance and got me excited about it. But I just really wanted to be an MP.
And for the record, I've never taken a test where someone's told me I have scored too high. It must be nice. So I'm glad you, I wanted to ask you this personally. So you have a little experience there with warfare when it comes to biological agents and stuff like that getting put out. COVID right now is a big thing, and obviously. So I'm not that I'm a big conspiracy theorist, but I do believe that this is something that could have possibly been released as a form of not nuclear warfare, but biological warfare, putting something out there. If you want to hurt the United States, this is my opinion, you hurt them economically. And so that was something that China, I don't know if they did or not. I mean, I'm a podcaster and a paint salesman, but looking outside in, is that something you would put past another country?
I don't know, the U.S. policy on it was that we would never use biological because it couldn't be controlled. We would use chemical only if it was used upon us first, and we would use nuclear at will. Now, like the chemical, some of the lasting agents, say blister agent, it's not meant to kill your soldier. It's meant when your soldiers come through, everywhere they get a drop on it, it forms huge blisters until the blisters pop and then run and cause more blisters. What it's meant to do is incapacitate your medical teams, your doctors, and slow down your troops. And COVID, what's it doing to our medical systems and the government? And they can't control it. They don't know it. And like you said, it shuts down the economy. So, but do I mean, it's obvious that it came out of China, right? So,
yeah.
But I know the Chinese are dealing with it themselves. And I know that's from my wife was teaching Chinese kids online at school, and they've been locked in their houses. I mean, they can't even go outside. They get their food delivered, et cetera. So if you're going to do that, why do it on young people? But then again, Saddam Hussein tested chemical warfare agents on his own people. So who knows?
Very true. And I would never, of course, when we're discussing this, it's strictly from a governmental perspective. It would never be the people of China or anything like that. And nor would I think that. But I'll tell you one thing that got my wheels turning on it was, a lot of people don't know this, but we'll use World War II as an example, go way back. When Japan attacked Pearl Harbor. So people who haven't studied a lot of history assume that was because of World War II and it was just a war and they just sneak attacked us. And while they did sneak attack us, there was a reason for that. And the reason for that was we were sanctioning them. Basically, we wouldn't sell them oil. And we were the largest exporter in those days of oil, would not sell it to them. And they had to basically pass through our Pacific fleet in order to get to Venezuela.
I'm a huge history buff.
Yeah. So you know the story.
Well, I do know the story.
And ever since that time, you never want to put things past another government to do. And I've had friends that they were in the military, they left the military, and then they went into to contract work, and there are things I'm sure that go on that none of us know about, and things like that. But I want to get your perspective on that, because that's something that you kind of specialized in, and
I don't know if their intentions, if they did it and their intentions were to mess us up, then they succeeded.
Yeah, they really did. And so you served your time there, and thank you for your service on that. What would you say was your biggest takeaway from serving in the military?
I guess leadership. I made sergeant at 19 years old. I graduated primary leadership development course, but I was teaching. But my NBC NCO, I was teaching officers and leaders how to use their equipment and do the different things so they go back and teach their troops. Nobody took it serious until the first Gulf War, when Saddam was firing the Scud missiles, and we didn't know if they had chemical agents attached to them or not, right?
Right.
But I guess the leadership, I've always been in a leadership position, and the discipline and leadership.
Yeah, it's a huge thing, I'm sure, throughout your life as we progress here, that you probably reached for often. I find that same thing as well. Leadership is a huge aspect of that. Us as professionals, we lean on that a lot. Everybody, I've said this a lot. People are not cookie cutters, and a good leader can kind of differentiate how to treat different people.
Right, smart enough to know where you're weak and bring out the best in your
That's
people.
exactly right. Yeah. So we get out of the military, and we'll go into the next segment here. This is segment 3, we'll call this, and it's brought to you by Rhino Electric. Rhino Electric can handle all your electrical needs, commercial or residential, so give them a call. What are you at? 324-3851. Rhino Electric, charging your electrical needs without shocking your wallet. I love that little tagline for them. So what do you head on to law enforcement at some point? This is your kind of what you're known for on your podcast, is your law enforcement side of your life. Tell us what kind of led you into law enforcement.
I guess I was such a bad guy when I was young. Not just teasing. Yeah. I don't know. The criminal mind's always fascinated me, and it really has. And when I started in corrections, it just blew me away. Yeah. And I loved it. I mean, that's all I ever wanted to do. You know. Yeah. Fight the bad guy.
Yeah, and especially growing up with parents that were heavy deep into the law. I mean, I'm sure that was a influence for you and all those sorts of things. It's funny. I'm so glad you did when you did your first podcast and talked about some of your prison life as a guard at Angola, I believe was that episode.
Trained at Angola, but was stationed at Dixon Correctional.
Yeah, Dixon. Okay, so I like those episodes, and it's funny from a podcast listener perspective. There's something for everybody, I guess you could say, and there's some of them that love when you get down and deep and dirty with the murder stories and the investigative stories from your time at the sheriff's office. And there's some that want to hear that those guard stories and the crazy stuff that happens in prison.
A lot of people like the funny stuff, and but I always said law enforcement, and this is true, is the greatest show on earth, or it used to be. And there were so many days, and I'd get off work where I felt like I should have to pay them for the privilege of working there because I had so much fun with it.
No kidding.
And
that's
just
awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah, outstanding.
Yeah, my wife. Just a little side note on prisons. My wife is a X-ray tech at Women's Hospital, so she does the mobile mammography. So they go and they do mammograms all over the state of Louisiana, and one of the places she goes is the women's prison. And you met her in passing one time, but my wife is an unbelievable individual. Yeah, everybody loves her. She's a talker. Imagine that. We get along in that respect. But my wife will sit there and communicate with the prisoners and, so what are you in for? And they love her to death. And so it's funny because she would come home they do this like once a month. They go there and she would come home and I'd be like, so what happened today? Tell me those stories. So it's mind-boggling almost to me how interesting that stuff is. especially in, like you say, law enforcement. And I'm sure it changes every day and all those sorts of things. And there's so many stories you can tell. So you became a prison guard first, and you know, you at some point you ended up at the Livingston Parish Sheriff's Office. You were recruited by Willie Graves, I believe.
Well, it was an accident, actually. Was at Southeastern PD, and I'd just taken a job with NOPD. They'd gone through the hiring process, et cetera. But I had my own private eye business on my days off, and I had all cops that worked for me because, we work 2 on, 2 off, 3 on, 2 off.
Yeah.
So the days I was working, I had other cops from different departments, my friends, working in my PI business.
Sure.
And one of them was Adam Rice, and he worked for Willie. And he kept saying, "Man, you got to come meet Willie Graves." I said, "Dude, I'm not going to Livingston Parish." Livingston Parish was the butt of the jokes, everything back then. They had nothing. And but on the last, I was just getting ready to report to NOPD, and Adam said, "You need to meet. Just come over." I was at his house. He said, "Come to the courthouse with me. We just want you to meet Willie." And I walked in, and he kept me in there, just him and I, almost an hour. And before I left, he offered me the job, and I took it because I read him, and I just knew it was where I was meant to be.
Yeah.
And that's the honest God truth. Yeah.
That's awesome. And I've met him a couple times as well, and he is a
real true leader of men. I can tell you that.
And I'm glad you mentioned that. I wanted to ask you, so observing strong leaders, learning from strong leaders, this is as important as any other aspect of any business, whether it's law enforcement or sales or running a newspaper, whatever. I'm fortunate, in my B&I group, for example, I'm in a networking group. There's a lady named Trisha Johnston. Trisha Johnston is a realtor for Ladder and Blue Realty. So Trisha is, in my opinion, someone that is just a born leader because she doesn't ever have to say anything about her being a leader. It's the way she carries herself and the way she takes care of her clients. And there's a reflection there to the amount of houses that she sells, those sorts of things. So those are the type of people I want to learn from. And I would imagine when you started at the sheriff's department, that was a person that was of great benefit to you, just watching them,
right?
Observing how they led.
What's so crazy about it is coming in to Livingston Parish, not being from here. I knew no one. I knew no one who worked at the office except for Brian Paul Smith, who's now the chief criminal deputy. He and I went to the academy together at LSU, okay. And to come in and not know anyone put me at somewhat of an advantage because I didn't play politics. I just arrest everybody indiscriminately. And Willie took care of it. He needed to, right? Or district attorney did. I'm talking about, I didn't know the family names, all the big names, et cetera. I just arrested them all. It didn't matter to me. But I always try, even at corrections and the military or whatever, I always like to watch other people work and try to glean the best things that they do and adapt them to my own, right? And so I did that through whether it was uniform patrol, corrections, detectives, polygraph, whatever, and especially in interview and interrogation, which I'm not conceited, just convinced that that's what I'm the best at.
Yeah.
But I got there by picking little things. Love to watch other people work and adapt their best techniques, maybe, or whatever.
Yeah.
Choose the best from them and go with it like that. I don't know how to.
I know exactly what you're saying, and I almost tell people the exact same thing. What I say to people is, I am a observer of people by nature. So I will observe. And I tell them, I'm sponging off you. I will see things that I can take and use to help me in my life, whether it's leadership or whatever. And I'll use that. I'll learn from that. It's an innate ability, I think, for that leaders possess, because inside we know we're leaders, but we're not so arrogant that we don't think we can't learn.
Right, sure,
we can learn from anybody.
Absolutely. And I think that, not even quantifying it as a leader, I think I just want to be the best. If Woody Overton's name was going on it, I wanted to be the best, right? I wanted to be to go above and beyond what everybody else did and go the extra mile. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly.
Do the best that I could do. That's the way my daddy raised me.
That's right.
The work ethic, and as I got older, and then being in the leadership positions, even in the private sector, et cetera, I find that nobody will do it. Nobody will do it as well as you'll do it, or as I would do it. You know what I mean? They won't put the whole. You expect that you this, and then they'll get to a certain point. I'm like, in my mind, it's not their fault. It's me being a perfectionist. I'm like, oh, can you go just a little bit further? Yeah.
Yeah, I've right. And I can relate to that 100%. I've been told more than once that my biggest weakness in leadership is my ability to delegate. What I struggle with, and it sounds like what you're also talking about, is if I have a customer, for example, or a client that I'm taking care of, I have an issue with taking care of them to the point that I run myself ragged. And the reason I do that is because I'm putting my name on that.
Right. My name goes on. I want to.
Yeah, exactly. And it's learning to trust other people to handle my business. That has always been a fight for me. But you know what? If that's the weakness that I have to deal with, I can handle it. That's fine. So I want to talk about another interesting thing about you is you were the very first person certified to perform lie detection in Livingston Parish, the first one for the sheriff's office. Okay, so you went to a pretty prestigious school for that. Tell us about that. I did.
I went to the, it's actually the Department of Defense school, but I went to the Texas State Police. It was a Texas State Police headquarters, and you have to be a senior law enforcement official to even get accepted to the school. It's hard to get in it, but the only other it teaches the Department of Defense curriculum, and it's so secretive that you don't have books or whatever. It's all done by PowerPoint, what have you. But it's DODPI is what they used to call it, Department of Defense Polygraph Institute. And I don't know what they changed the name of it now, but that was a tough school.
Yeah.
Tough deal.
Yeah. Well, and that's, I'll tell you a little experience I had with a lie detector at one point. I wasn't going to tell the story, but I'm going to tell it now because it's comfortable. So, many years ago, because I work in retail, we were having an issue with some theft. I was managing a store for my company, and somebody was stealing. We couldn't figure out who it was. The issue we were running into was because everybody had access to that register, let's say. Everybody had a lie detect. You couldn't cherry pick.
1988 Employee Polygraph Detection Act. Everybody that has access to it has, the owner all the way down, has access to it. Has to be tested.
Yes. So, back in those days, I was 28 at the time, maybe 27. I was like, fine, I ain't doing nothing. No problem. And they did. The interesting thing is usually when you spring that, somebody's going to quit. And that's 99% of the time the one, and they're going to stomp up and down and they're going to say it's because if you think I would do something like that, and you got your guy. Well, in this situation, no one quit. So we were like, we all got to take a freaking lie detector now. So the lady comes and she hooks me up, and I didn't do anything, but I was nervous, and so I'm thinking I'm going to fail this freaking. I can't calm myself down. I mean, it was weird. They had you hooked up in the. She sat me down and she's trying to find that I guess medium or whatever you would call it, where my heart rate and all that was matching up, and she would talk to me, just try to calm me down, and I'm like, no, I'm fine. And she started the test. I took the test, passed the test. We ended up catching the guy that failed it. Now, fast forward to today. I'm like, if I was in that same situation, would I? And here, you did an episode that I listened to where you specifically spoke of false positive. That was the name of it, I believe. And that's what got my wheels turning. And I'm like, if that woman wouldn't have been a good polygraph examiner, I mean, she could have screwed up and I could have failed that sucker.
Good and bad in every profession. Right?
Yeah.
And I'm not taking a polygraph.
Yeah.
I tell you that not because I don't believe in it, but because you don't know who the examiner is, etc.
Your entire fate is on the person across from you being good at it.
But you know what? Even the examiner is only as good as the information they're given. And I had to learn, and I learned lessons through my younger career, like on the episodes you're talking about, false positive. When you get it, that license, everybody wants to use you up, etc. And then they want to start using it in place of a good investigation. You just go do your job, and you don't even have to have the polygraph. But just a lot of things to work it out on it. But there's a reason. It is admissible in court if both sides agree to the expert testimony. I've actually testified in civil cases and in some grand juries and stuff like that. But that's so rare that that's ever going to happen. That both sides are going to agree, because naturally it's an adversarial situation at some point. But yeah, the polygraph is an excellent interrogation, break somebody down tool if you know how to do it. It's an art form.
It seems, and this lady was good. She, I don't remember her name, but she was very obviously knew what she was doing and all those things. My question is and we'll go back to your law enforcement days. Say you had someone in there and you're sure they did it. You know they did it. You just want to get the polygraph kind of as the padding, and you sit them down and you polygraph them and they pass it. And I know that's probably never happened, but if it did, does that really throw you off their trail, or is it
actually has happened at the? Well, I can't say that they beat it. The countermeasure is a deliberate attempt on the part of the examinee to do just something to alter the outcome of the test. And there's 3 types: mental, physical, and narcotics. Most examiners are not trained in that. If they are, they have like an hour's worth, right? In the federal program, you're trained in that. And I've actually been to advanced anti-countermeasure schools. So all the stuff they have on the internet, all the websites, they have them, how to beat the polygraph, how to steam the polygraph, antipolygraph.org, the websites. They have a lot of true and correct testing information. But the one thing they don't tell you is using the countermeasure never makes the guilty person look innocent. All it does is messes up the charts and makes them where they can't be scored, and you get a result of inconclusive. I don't do inconclusive. To me, you either did it, you didn't do it, or it's a no opinion if I bust you using countermeasures. But I'm going to tell you something. You talk about cases like that, and it just reminded me of another story. I'll do it on a podcast one day where I just knew the person did it, et cetera, and it came in and passed the polygraph. But it actually wasn't because they beat me. It was actually because I was wrong on my preconceived notion that they were guilty.
Oh,
they ended up being innocent.
Yeah. So, yeah. That was, well, and you told on that same episode that I'm speaking of,
right?
You had discussed I think it was the FBI or somebody had come in and they were just convinced about this.
And what I didn't know at the time as a rookie examiner, I hounded her on that one question that they saying she didn't press the extended time lock, and I'm telling you, and she's like, no, I did, but it ended up. FBI got it wrong, but the only question she failed was the participation, and that's because I hounded her so hard on that ahead of time, saying the FBI said you didn't. So she was really worried about that question, but she still passed. Did you participate, or did you not participate? Did you tell them how to rob the bank, whatever it was?
Right.
She passed the really serious questions, but she went deception indicated on that one question, but it was because I kept messing with her. And in her mind, she was thinking, maybe I didn't. Maybe I didn't, right? And
almost getting paranoid.
So, and she was a true victim. Yeah. I mean, it really happened to her.
Yeah, and that's an amazing episode. I highly recommend people go back and listen to that one. It's full of twists and turns, I can tell you. So you also had a reputation. You were being someone that could really go out there and just chase the dope as it were. Yeah. So is this something that you just specialized at and you were just good at? They called you the wolf.
Yeah. It's back to reading people. What I didn't like to do was write tickets, right? But I stopped more people in uniform patrol. I would stop more people every night than probably everybody else on the whole shift combined. But I was hunting. When my regular calls, in between calls, I wanted to go catch the dopers or the people with the warrants, et cetera. And so that's what I did. But it goes back to, I get you out of the car. I knew within the first 30 seconds of talking to you if I had you or not, right?
Yeah.
And I just knew. And reading people, right? And then, so yeah, that's, it was fun. I mean,
Sure.
Like Ernest Hemingway says, certainly there's no thrill like the hunting of armed men and men who've done that long enough, soon care for a little else, however it goes. And that's what it was. I'm a big hunter, right? And deer hunting or whatever, but this is hunting potentially armed people, but adversarial, bad guys. And,
that's amazing. And I'll tell you one thing that especially with everything going on right now with the police and all this stupid stuff, and I'm not going to hesitate to say that I'm a huge supporter of the police. And I think these people are idiots that are doing what they're doing to our law enforcement, insinuating that you want to defund the police. Are you kidding me?
Right. And they said defund them and said, but what are you doing on a 911 call on a domestic? Oh, we'll send out a counselor.
Yeah.
More cops get killed every year responding to domestic violence calls than all the other calls combined. If it's a narcotics call, we'll send out a narcotics counselor. Go ahead. Yeah.
Well, and here's what I believe, Woody. There's two kind of people in this world. There's people that run towards danger, and there's people that run away from it. And there's people that if it's their family, they're going to defend their family. I'll use you and I'll use my wife as two examples. Both of you are people that would run towards danger. And what I mean by that is if somebody needs your help, you're there. I am not a big fan of like seeing blood and stuff like that. I'm just not built that way. It bothers me. It's something that I don't like to see. We had Leadership Livingston, which is Livingston Parish Chamber of Commerce sponsors. A lot of the local leaders here have went through it. I'd love for you to. But this program, the sheriff's department participates in this as well. They have we have a day where we go to the sheriff's department and all this. Now this year with COVID, we had to do all this online. So it was like over Zoom, but they played like a 911 call was one thing. And it was a lady, and unfortunately she had got shot, killed, and she called and it was the whole call. And man, it freaking disturbed me, bothered me for days. And what it really did more than anything else was I already had a ton of respect for the police, but I'm like, man, that's how you can go and put yourself in danger for someone you don't even know is some pretty strong shit. And excuse my French, you might bleep that out, but it really is something that not everybody can do. Somebody messes with my kids, somebody messes with my wife. I see an old lady on the street getting her purse snatched. I'm going to handle that situation, but I might hesitate. I might step for a second and think. You're not thinking. My wife's not thinking. My wife will, if somebody's hurt and their head's half cut off, she's going to go there and try to render first aid. I'll do that, but I might kind of, do I want to see this? Your episodes and you have a warning before them. This is, basically saying this is not for everybody. This is, but it's the truth. And that's what I like about it. And I love the episodes. I'm just glad I don't have to see that, in person.
Go back to the narcotics. When I was out there hustling every night, I wasn't just drawing a paycheck. I wasn't what we call a rod, retired on duty, just going from call to call and doing my minimum amount. So I was out there hunting. And remember, I didn't know anybody in Livingston Parish, but I made the name for myself. Then I didn't lose my cases because I brought correct all my motion suppressors and probable cause hearings, et cetera. So I guess I caught Willie's eye, and then I made detective in like a year and a half, which was I would beat out people who'd been here forever.
Right.
And then, but there was no narcotic spot at the time. And when I made detectives and I worked my first homicide, then I realized the dope wasn't as important. And to me, I wanted to go after the real good. I didn't want to keep arresting the same dopers over and over again. I wanted to put people in prison that were going to be in prison after I retired, right, or die in prison.
Yeah.
Put them away so they couldn't hurt other people.
I get it.
Yeah.
And the Lewiston Parish Sheriff's Office has something on their badge. It doesn't say protect and serve. It says something else. Is that there's some sort of is something about a Bible book?
Yeah, Jason changed that after he became sheriff, and I'm not familiar with what it is, but I've seen it. I just hadn't looked it up. I know, but I can't remember.
Yeah, I can't either. It's something like we are the protectors of people or something. I don't know. So whoever knows, comment underneath here and tell us. I know Lance Landry knows because he's the one that told me. So yeah, which I have a lot of respect for that, because that was something that I found very, very interesting and kind of limited to the Livingston Parish Sheriff's Office, that as far as I know anyway. So getting back to that point, it takes special human beings to do that. Do you remember working your first homicide? Like, were you nervous that, man, what the heck happened here? And
well, I actually had been out on a couple homicides. Of course, the uniform guys going to be the first ones to respond, right? And uniform patrol and all the suicides and everything else. But I don't really remember which was my first homicide. I just know that I know that it's too many to remember, and I can't remember which one, but I know there's no greater satisfaction than especially figuring out a case that nobody else can figure out, right? And then taking that case and especially like cold case, taking that case and putting this person in prison for the rest of their life, right?
Yeah,
that's priceless to me.
It's probably like a Drew Brees running out.
It's funny.
It
just popped in my head. I started in Texas. I remember I probably still have it. I started a plaque. I called my 20-plus year club. Everybody I got sentenced to more than 20 years because I knew I was going to be retired. But after like the first 5 or 6, I was like, man, there's no way I can keep up with this thing. Threw it away. Awesome. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that in probably 20 years. So.
Yeah.
But 20-plus club. Yeah.
A lot of people before your podcast didn't realize all that was involved in those cases. What makes you really good, and we're going to get more into this when we finally get into your podcasting part of life, but is your innate ability to paint a picture for the listener to the point they almost feel like they're there. You are gifted at that. That is probably the hardest part of what we do as podcasters. But you're a storyteller. I'm an interviewer. There's a big difference between us, and the way you tell a story, man, is to be admired. It's unbelievable.
I just go with I have a photographic memory, and so I don't use any notes or anything like that. And so when I tell the story, I'm describing what I'm seeing in my head.
Yeah,
makes sense.
Yeah, it does, and I wish I had that. I'm envious. So you at some point you ended up at the state police. How did that occur?
The state police had asked me to become to come as a criminal investigator too, which at that time was the highest ranking investigator they had, and there were only 3 other ones in the state. And I was like, no way. I knew I had chief of detectives at the Livingston Parish Sheriff's Office had a state, and the second time, one of my buddies, Lane Barnum, who's I think just retired, as a colonel, but he's from north of Denham. Anyway, he and I used to date cousins way back together today with some Denham Springs girls too. But he called, and he was captain of internal affairs, and he said the colonel, is coming to Denham. Let us take you to lunch. I'm like, because they had already turned them down.
Right.
And then I went to lunch with them, and they just, you know, maybe an offer I couldn't refuse. They took all my previous state time, at the corrections time, my university PD time, all those. It made where I had 7 years till I could retire. Plus, my salary was more than double. And he said, there'll be, you know, you'll have your own office, no more nights or weekends, no more call outs, no more. I mean, it just took everything. And maybe an offer I couldn't refuse. But he did ask me, I'll never forget it, right down here at that restaurant by the railroad tracks. And he said, the colonel said, Woody, how come you never want to be a trooper? I said, I don't want to hurt your feelings. And he said, no, just tell me. I said, because you do the three things I hate the worst. And he said, what? I said, accidents, tickets, and DWIs. You know, I don't like working accidents because they take up, you know, it's too much paperwork.
Yeah.
Tickets, I just didn't do them. If you were such a butthole to me that I had to write you a ticket, now I stopped more people than anybody else. If you were such an ass to me that I had to write you a ticket, I just took you to jail for it. And then the DWIs, what always happened during PHT, prime hunting time, right? Between like 9:30 p.m. and 3:30 a.m. in the morning. That's why I'm out there doing my hunting. But I had all the troopers on speed dial. I said, stop it. And I stopped 100 drunks a night probably. I called the local trooper and said, hey, I got you a 98 over here. Come to get them. And because for a misdemeanor, I'm not making light of DWIs, but I didn't want to get bogged down in the paperwork. So they made me that offer. And, I started in between a lieutenant and a captain's pay, with state police, and in 7 years till I retire, and I'm retired. So,
wow. Yeah, I can imagine. And DWIs are probably just a ton of, and then you're dealing with people just trash. There ain't nothing. Exactly. Yeah. And, I'm fine.
And you got to get them off. And then you got to get a tow truck, and you do the test, and you bring them back. You have to observe them for so long before you put them on the machine. I think I did 3 in my entire career. And the first one's a mystery. They might have 12 DWIs on the record, but if they weren't Boykanized in each district, was what they call it, they only get charged with their first or the second. And I was like, let the troopers handle that. That's what they do. So anyway, troopers, they don't know shit about investigating.
Yeah.
And they don't, other than crashes and stuff. And so that's what I went over and what I did. So
amazing. So you do your state police stuff, and how long were you with them?
From 2007 to the end of 2013.
Okay, and I know something occurred in between all of that time, and we're going to get into that. And for that segment, Stephanie Berthelot and the crew at SR Enterprise can handle all your painting needs, Woody, and your sheetrock or texture. Give Stephanie a call at 504-432-9284. SR Enterprise, they spread the paint, but you spread the word. So, I know, I like that one too. Such good taglines today.
And all these after the flood.
I'm telling you, look, trust me, it was on fire after the flood. Woody, you write books in addition to all this stuff that you do. And I'm a book fan to begin with. Did you write a book called Prophecy of Honor? That is you. That's a fantasy book.
I wrote that for my kids, or my tweens or whatever, way back then.
Okay.
Yeah, I always was and still am a voracious reader. And when other kids were, building stuff and doing with tools, I was reading books.
Yeah.
And I always like to write. I've written so much stuff that I never published or did anything with. I just like to write. I guess it goes back to storytelling.
Yeah, it really does. What you're doing now is writing. It's just coming out of your mouth instead of on a piece of paper. But you did write Prophecy of Honor. It's kind of like a fantasy series book. Were you a Dungeons and Dragons fan?
I was.
Were you really? I played it too. D&D, man, back in the day.
But then I couldn't find enough other kids to play with me.
Yeah, you got to have like 4 or 5 people. And I played with a bunch of hoodlums back in the day, and they would always do crazy stuff Jim, you're dead or whatever. Yeah. Anyway, we digress. Yeah. So you also wrote a book called Jesus Help Me. And that is the book that I had the pleasure of listening to. I call it reading. Most people call it listening to. Great. You narrated it yourself.
I actually did the published version first. Okay. And then after I got into podcast of people talking about the voice. And so that's when I went back and narrated it for Audible.
I got you. And let me tell you, an amazing book. Kudos to you for, we just talked about this a minute ago, but your ability to of descriptive storytelling is unbelievable. I'll give you an example. There's a part of that book. I'm not going to tell you too much of it, listeners. You're gonna have to download it, but trust me, worth the download. There's a part of that book where you discuss Aladdin, and you're apparently allergic to it, or it does crazy stuff. I found out. Sure. I found out at the wrong time. So they are injecting you. You're in a lot of pain, and of course, you're describing this like fire just going through your body.
I'm just crawling every inch all the way through me and ripping up muscles and everything all the way down to my toes. And I had sandals on laying on the table in the yard, my toes even locked up.
Yeah. And that's exactly how he describes it in the book. And I'll tell you, his descriptive storytelling is so good. I can almost feel it, man. I can almost feel that. But you discuss your faith in that book a little bit, and who knows? People may be surprised you're a man of faith.
Absolutely. A lot of people are surprised about that. But look, just because I'm a Christian doesn't mean I'm a pacifist, right?
Well, that's right.
And, hey, I'm not trying to preach to anybody. I'm the biggest sinner probably in the whole parish, but I love Jesus. I love Jesus.
I don't know, Woody.
But I don't have a religion. I have a relationship.
That's an excellent way to put that, and I can agree and confer with that. It's the book itself is kind of centered around your relationship with God, but also near-death experience that you had personally, and your ability to overcome that. And you talk about your wife in there a little bit, Cindy. You ever sit like I do, and you sit back and you think, I'm lucky to have a chick like that.
Punted way outside my coverage with this one.
I'm telling you, man, it's strong men typically have strong women around them. Successful men typically have. How much has Cindy meant to you in your life?
Everything. She was the one that finally got Woody Overton and then took me for who I was and supported me through thick and thin, good times and bad, legitimate, right? And she's my partner, man. Yeah. She's now. You want to talk about the grease that makes everything run? She's it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. That's I can relate, and us as guys, of course, we're studs, and of course they're going to like us and all these sorts of things, but everybody has aspects of their personality that maybe it can be abrasive, or maybe I know you're the same way as me. I'm sure we both look back every day and we're like, man, I'm so lucky that person's there. And we were talking before this podcast about all the things Cindy does for you in this podcast. And so good job, Miss Cindy, if you're listening over there.
Wouldn't be any real life real crime without Cindy Overton. Of course, I probably wouldn't be sitting here today without her either. So.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I may not either. And I'll have to tell some stories about that. But you do many other endeavors beyond being an author. Working for the state police, working for the sheriff's department, all these amazing things you've done in your life. And one of the things you do is private investigator work, or you did do at some point.
I did. I started that in my early 20s, and I kind of broke the mold on it because back then you go to the PI school and graduate and start your own business. So what I did now, what I did back then is the yellow pages were still out. So I took out the biggest ad in the yellow pages, and I cut everybody else's rates in half. And I advertised on a little local cable television channel. You remember the one?
Oh, yeah.
The screens would swap. And
yep. It was like Channel 9 or something back in the day. Yeah.
Investigations. And then all the old timers that were on the board, hell, I was killing their business. Now they changed the law. When you get out of PI school, you have to do so many years of internship and be sponsored, et cetera. Yeah. Yeah, that was fun. Those were fun times.
That's interesting. Yeah. And I would imagine it was a lot of my husband's cheating on me, follow him around kind of thing.
Custody cases. That's what. Actually, I did a lot of insurance fraud, and I had a bunch of crazy things. New businesses, Visa and MasterCard would pay me to go out and actually certify that they were new businesses, and
you could do a whole new podcast just on that.
I hadn't thought about that in 20 years. Yeah.
Golly, what a life. Yeah, that's I've always kind of been intrigued by private investigator work because you're typically trying to catch people in something.
But after I retired, I got into defense consulting, and then I got certified as an expert in all United States federal courts as an expert witness in law enforcement matters, right? Which is not that many of us in the United States that do that. And so I got started in defense consulting almost by accident. I went in to do a polygraph for a defense attorney. The client was innocent, but there was a young defense attorney who's not young anymore, and he's one of the best. But I told him, I said, "This case is wrong, dude." I said, "You missed this, and this from a cop standpoint.
Sure.
And they did this wrong, da da da." And that kind of morphed into his own career, and it took me nationwide.
Wow.
So
a lot of travel.
A lot of travel. I actually had to have an apartment in Dallas at one point, but just crazy. I've been crazy blessed. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, I can imagine. That's man.
I never knew what God was going to give me next, man, and I still don't.
Yeah, look, you are rocking and rolling. That's a good transition into what you do right now, which is you are an extremely popular podcast host of your own show, Real Life, Real Crime, the podcast. And my first question on that is, how did the concept come into play? It seems so obvious now. How did you not think of this 10 years ago?
Absolute accident. And Cindy hates when I say that, but it was a year ago. So I guess 2018's hunting season. I always could stay at my cabin and stuff, and then Cindy keeps the fort down at home. I can work from up there, right? If I have to travel, I bring my clothes and I can go catch a plane from New Orleans or wherever, So meanwhile, I'm hunting. And it was a bad weekend, hot, et cetera. And I said, you know what? Well, I'm going to take you to the coast weekends. We can have some alone time and go to the Overton, right? And on the way over there, she said, we're driving through the parish like always. I passed somewhere and I said, I work such and such there. She said, you know what? You need to start a podcast. And I said, what the hell is a podcast? I didn't know.
Yeah.
I really didn't know. And she said, but people tell stories. And then I'm like, what? And so we started listening to some of the true crime ones on the top ones in the world. On the way over there, I'm like, this is boring. I mean, these people are reading scripts and stuff they've researched off the internet. She said, everybody likes your voice. You got a million stories. Just trust me. And let's do a podcast. So I said, I'll tell them a story. In retrospect, I probably shouldn't have started out with Double Clutch because it's such a hard one to hear, right? But at the end of it, the justification is this guy's been getting away with it for over 20 years. And I got him 4 life sentences in less than 15 minutes. So, but in retrospect, I mean, you could go look at my numbers when people come to see, they hear the first episode, and then they don't click through to the rest of it because like, oh shit, I can't hear that.
Yeah.
But
I'll give you my opinion on that. And as a listener, as someone from the other side, to me, it was probably one of the best moves you made. You're right. If you can get through Double Clutch, you can get through probably anything else you have to say. But that being said, it's probably stirred up more heat, I guess they would call it in the wrestling business, stirred up more heat for you and your podcast right from Jump Street, man.
Get viral. It was great.
Unbelievable episode, and but heat is warning. Heat is warning on it.
Let's do it now. I apologize about the audio. We didn't know what we didn't know.
That's right.
I was just telling the story. And my wife edited that. I mean, we knew nothing, and she had to learn how to edit and take out my lip smacks and ums, and I mean, of course, her equipment has improved and everything else, but it seems like so long ago now. But it's only been a year and a half.
Yeah. It took off that fast.
2.2 million downloads this week's what we passed, and we were at 1 million in February.
That's unbelievable. That is it's unbelievable, but I get it, and I'll tell you why. You have made all the right moves on your podcast. Okay, so you have the perfect logo for what you do. It's black and red. You have kind of a, your podcast itself is not dark, but your subject matter can be considered a little bit darker than, maybe what I talk about on an everyday basis on my podcast. Let's talk about your intro. So, Toby Tomplay, and you had an intro before his that I also liked a lot.
The first one I did, I said I want something soulsy and bluesy with a prison theme, because you know what I mean. And a lot of people, not a lot, but some people said it was racist. Well, I found that old prison song, was Chain Gang prison song, one of the Sugar and Coffee Law that makes me. I mean, but it moved me, right, and that's just like the emblem. When I'm looking for something like that, I get it. And if it moves me, then I use it. I guess it translates to other people liking it or hating it. That one. And then, I loved it. And then the kind of a copyright thing, an issue that on that song. And so then I had my son and his friend. I said, you know what? I'm gonna hit him with a cop siren, and it played that. I just read the Miranda rights. It wasn't on for that long, maybe one season. But then Tomplay reached out. I didn't know this guy. They were fans of the show, and he said, "I'm going to write a song for you." He said, "Can you say the Miranda rights and record it for me?" Whatever. I'm like, all right, whatever. I did it, and like 2 days later, he hit it, and I was like, "Man, this is fire!" Fire.
It is an intro that once you hear it about 3 times, it is stuck in your head forever. You walk, I walk around the backyard, and I might be painting a piece of furniture, and the whole time in my head, whoa.
And I didn't realize how big that it was with the fans until we did the crew bash. When I came out on the stage, and right before going on stage, Toby says, "You're gonna read the warning while I play the music." I'm like, "What? I'm not prepared for this," but of course I did it. But the fans were saying it just as loud as I was.
Dude, the roof went off the place.
Crazy, man. That was wild.
Look, let me.
Our lifers are the lifers, the fans are the best.
It was unreal. Okay, so from another podcaster's perspective, so I told you that, Lori posted that link. I clicked on the link, listened to the episode. First thing I did, I said, I got to tell my wife about this. Now, my wife is all into the blood and guts and gory kind of stuff. She's she can't get enough of it. I tease her all the time. I say, the only reason you're not a doctor is because you married me. And I figured out I gotta wife up this girl or husband up this or whatever you call it before she figures out that I'm not a doctor and goes and finds one. So that being said, I'm gonna kind of sidebar to this. There's an episode where you talk about an autopsy, and you say there's a sound, and you say that sound. They go around and excuse us for talking about this. Can't handle it, but hey, it's real life, real crime day today. There's funny story. Dating my wife, I don't know how many years ago, 23 years ago now, and she's telling me, they're in school and they have to kind of like witness these autopsies. She says there's this really cool sound it makes when they pop that cranium off.
I said that there's no other sound like it.
And I said, what does it sound like? She says like I don't know how she did it, popped her lips or something. And fast forward to that episode, and you said the exact same thing. And I said, that chick was serious. But the whole time she's telling me that, I'm like, I don't know if I want to date her anymore, man. This chick's weird. Yeah. But she was hammering that point. It's this sound you wouldn't believe it. It's the cool. She described it as a cool sound, right. but anyway, I thought that was interesting.
The suction of the skull separating over the brain. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. But it's a certain.
It's just that sound.
Pop it off.
I guess whatever, y'all can have that.
It's the blood and guts. I don't do, and that's the other thing. There's a lot of podcasts. The true crime genre is pretty much the biggest genre in the world for podcast listeners, and there are a lot of them that sensationalize the blood and guts and stuff like that. I have never ever sensationalized anything. I'm only telling you what I saw,
and
I keep out. I don't tell. All my best stories are yet to come. My biggest cases, the worst murders and stuff. But I'm waiting so I can get access to files so I can make it more in depth and all. But I don't. It's not sensationalized. It's just the truth.
Well, what separates you from a lot of those folks? You're first person, Woody. You were there in a lot of these cases. The people that aren't, they're basically telling us. They're reading out of a book. You're not. You're there, and so you don't have to sensationalize. And I think that's what people love about you more than anything else is you're genuine. You don't sugarcoat it, but you don't give them more information than they need to have. And as you just said, sensationalize something. And honestly, with your stories, they don't have to be. They're good enough just the way they are. I mean, as far as that goes. So your interaction with fans is off the chain. You almost, at the times I've seen from your Facebook, which congratulations on well over 20,000 members. It's insane and not surprising, but these lifers, as you call them, are really supportive of you and your podcast. Another great idea in branding is the fact that you call them lifers. I mean, man, all those things are just, when I say you made all the right moves to call your fans lifers, your 30-second podcast, but how important are these lifers to your success?
They're everything. Like that private crew page, a forensic psychologist from Alaska, right after I dropped Double Clutch, she said, you need to start, messaged me out of the blue, said, you need to start your own private group so you won't get censored on Facebook. And I don't know how to do that. She actually started it for me. She was my original Dream Team moderator. That's why I call my moderators the Dream Team. Yep. And they did it, and lifers, it's a play on words naturally, right? Lifers, people I put away for life. That's why I was thinking in my head, but lifers you down. Yeah. We'll ride for life, whatever. You can look at it a bunch of different ways. But when the Advocate did that article on this, and they labeled my fans a cult, that went nationwide. The AP picked it up, and so podcast has a cult following, right? And then they were joking, now we're a cult. I was like, it is what it is. That's it. They're fanatics, I can tell you that. Yeah. And I love them, every one of them. Absolutely. I really, really do.
And they definitely are. And that circles us back to that live event that you had. I attended that live event. I went to my wife first. I said, you got to listen to this guy's podcast, man. It's good. And the cool thing is, he worked for the Livingston Parish Sheriff's Office. We know these cases. And so she did. The next day, she texted me, OMG, that was freaking awesome, or something like that. And she, we started catching up at that point with all your episodes that you had put at that point. And found out you were having a live. And I said, I'm going to go to this. I'm going to check this out, see what this guy's all about. So we went. Everything about that live was perfect. You had the small table with chairs, and it wasn't over the top as far as it was just enough to, it was almost like a little detective scene. It was crazy. Had the big real life, real crime banner in the background. we got a great picture in front of that, and I took one by itself that I'm going to kind of splice into this episode. But, you know, I stayed for the whole thing. It was so packed at the end that people were shoulder to shoulder. No COVID at that time, thankfully. People were shoulder to shoulder. Both stories of this place. And what happens? Toby Tom Play comes out. They start playing the theme. And here comes Woody Overton. And he says, you have the right to remain silent. And when I tell you the roof blew off that building, it blew off, and you're exactly right. Everybody started saying the Miranda rights. Dude, these people are here listening to you do a podcast. that it's unbelievable.
We were the first people to ever sell out that place, and the only person that's sold it out since is Snoop Dogg.
Yeah, no kidding. Shout out to Snoop Dogg.
The owner told us, he said, you got to quit selling tickets, man. It's going to be too many people in here. And so we did. But
well, you had all your real life, real crime, the podcast, logoed merchandise there. It was set up really nice. You had a lot of help. I know Lori was there helping. We actually, she works with Dr. Doug at Strickland Dental, and my sister-in-law, my wife's sister, worked with her for many years. She's a dental hygienist, but now she's in Mississippi, and that's a whole nother story. But totally impressive. Now, COVID hit, and you had an event scheduled where,
if you want to show tour scheduled, we had House of Blues was going to be the first one in New Orleans, and they got canceled for whatever reason, but it would have been, right? House of Blues tickets were sold out. Then Alexandria, Louisiana, then coming back the next day to Killian at 10 Lizzie's on the river.
Yeah.
Then we had Dallas, Texas, Houston, back to Baton Rouge for the Texas Club with Chase Tyler, which got canceled, and then then Chicago. All the venues booked, man, and people want to see it, and then I guess it is what it is. But the COVID slammed us.
Yeah.
So I mean, we refunded, naturally refunded all the money on the ticket sales and everything else. But yeah, COVID slammed it. But I mean, it'll come back, I hope.
Whose idea was it? These live
that actually goes to Livingston Parish Literacy and Technology Center. They Kelly Jennings and Kim Alvin, who's the principal. Kelly Jennings asked me to come speak to her criminal justice students, and that's when I went. And the Advocate came and ran the article, and it got picked up on the AP Wire that about the cult following.
Yeah.
And she was like, "You ever thought about doing a live?" And I was like, "No, not really." And she's like, "We'll host it here for you for free." So the Livingston Parish Literacy and Technology Center, it's like 100. I think it's 150 or 160, whatever. Their concert hall. And I said, you know what, let's try it. We sold out within less than an hour when they went online. And I was like, that was for that Saturday night. And I called her. I said, you think we can get another night? She said, yeah, Friday night. Put it on Friday night, sold that one out in less than an hour. And I said, you think we can get Thursday night? She said, yeah. And the Thursday night, it was a LSU Georgia game, and it took us less than a day to sell that one out. So we did 3 shows back to back to back there, and then we've morphed that into the one that you went to.
Yeah.
Which was,
it was probably one of the best ideas I've seen in the podcast genre.
Right. And then having the music. Now, the 3 we did at Livingston Parish Literacy and Technology Center, which those are the best people in the world, man. That criminal justice program Kelly Jennings has going on. I wish I'd had a teacher like that in school. But they hosted us, but there was no alcohol or anything like that. When the Crew Bash was advertised, it was everything. Like, this was going to be an adult story. I couldn't tell an adult. I mean, I told a murder story at to to the crowds, and Walker is where those 3 lives were, and but the one in Baton Rouge, I mean,
that was a party.
It was going to be an adult.
Look, and it was perfect setting for that, and everybody had a good time. There, the great thing about it is there was no fights, there was no craziness. It was everybody having fun. Y'all took tons of time to visit with fans after pictures.
I never got to hear or see Toby and then play. I mean, I was upstairs 4 hours doing pictures and autographs, lying down the. You saw the line all the way down the stairs for people. I can't believe people did it. It still blows my mind. Like when we did Lives in Walker, we had people coming in from Florida, Tennessee, Michigan. I'm not talking about people that came, lifers, that because we advertised it, that came in from all over the country to hear me speak.
Sure.
And it's crazy. I just blessed. I love them all.
Very, very blessed. And it's funny you talk about that line. I was at the bar. My wife says, I'm going to go take a picture with him. And I said, okay, I'm going to chill out right here and go ahead and do that. And by the time she got back, I think I was inebriated.
Yeah, I know, right?
It was like 2 hours later. I'm like, God dang.
At one point, when I was up there taking pictures, one of the people out helping out tried, I wanted another beer, and they brought me a water in my thing, like, with a little bit of beer mixed in. I said, what the hell? I mean, I'm not that drunk.
We're cutting you off.
But it was the same way at the live shows in Walker. I stayed and signed and took a picture with every single person who was there. You know why? Because I felt honored, man. These people would come to see me and do it. And then the person, of course, in future live shows, it's a learning experience. The person I was taking the picture was trying to rush people through. I'm like, hey, every single person I stop and say, where are you from? What's your name? Because a lot of the names I'll see, remember from the free page, stuff like that. And then they might have drove in from New York or flew in from New York to see it. And I'm like, I'm gonna take a minute and talk to them. And the girl comes up and says, trying to pull the fan away. I'm like, oh no, stop! I want to talk to them. Right. And that's awesome. But the really do love them. It wouldn't be a show without them. I still don't get it. I really don't get it.
You lived it.
The whole thing. The whole success of the deal. It's surreal.
It's a credit to what you do, and so we're gonna, with your podcast, you discuss some cases that some people have some good interest in. COVID has slowed the progress a little bit on the Courtney Coco case.
And Miss Barbara Blunt.
Yeah. And I know you've said it a million times on Facebook and your podcast. But for people who maybe are fans of mine and not yours, I don't think that exists. But if there's one out there, do you foresee justice for Courtney?
It is absolutely. I can't say in the Courtney Coco series. First of all, you didn't even get to know what I knew, right? Because I didn't want to hurt the investigation, all the real facts of the case. But people get to hear the family's pain, and then the retired detective crying. I drove to Texas, Detective Rabelais and all that. Mm-hmm. So I put the story together, turned it over. First success was it went from a frozen case to the number one hot case in 3 weeks. In the 6 weeks, I turned it over. But long story short, I know, and I can't say how I know, but I know for a fact the arrests are going to be made. Or I know for a fact it's being taken to the grand jury. COVID is stopping the meetings that are playing, and I can't say anymore because I didn't give away my source. But it's going to be a fine day, and I would like to think that it's happening as we speak. I don't have any reason to believe that's not, and I'm just waiting.
And for the listeners out there, I mean, that's huge because this case was as cold as ice.
Yeah, well, it was even worse than that. I have the mama recording the detective on the phone saying they're actively working the case, and the detective's telling the family members and other people in the community that it was an accidental overdose. But they're still lying to the mama and saying they're working it as a homicide. Yeah. I mean, we busted them.
Well, thank God that
They have no love for Woody Overton. And
no love. I bet they don't. That's all right.
Not law enforcement.
That's all right. In the end, things will work out, and that's what matters. Now, you're working with Jason Ard in the Livingston Parish Sheriff's Office on the Barbara Blunt case. I happen to think a lot of Jason Ard. His experience in law enforcement, to me, is amazing. This is a man that was a cadet for the Denham Springs Police Department at 15 years old. I mean, that's, you know, talk about someone who always knew what he wanted to do for a living. So I know you've spoken very complimentary on your show several times. And so I only bring that up that I hope the people in Livingston Parish realize how fortunate they are to have someone like Jason.
I don't think that they do, especially, you're always going to have haters when you arrest people and stuff like that and everything else. And then the Denny Perkins thing and all that. But here's the deal. Jason Ard's a good dude, man. I came to Livingston. I didn't know anybody. I built my career doing my job, right? And then, I got on the SRT team. Jason founded the SWAT team, basically. Jason founded that team, and I didn't know him, but then we became fast friends, and we were peas in a pod. And until I went to the state police, and we parted ways. But he is a consummate law enforcement professional, and he cares, man. He cares. I'm talking about, we're working on Barbara Blunt's case, and before COVID, in 2:30 in the morning, he's sending me a text. He's up reading file himself, going back through it, right? I mean, he cares. Yeah. There was never a major case when I was there, and he had made chief of operations before I left to go to state police, that he didn't come out on himself. Right. Not because to be a looky-loo, but because, I mean, he's a really good delegator of authority. He didn't say, hey, what he did you do this? He let his people do their thing, right? Sure. Willie was excellent about that. Yeah. Put people in the right position and let them run. And so on that Barbara Blunt case, how difficult is that from an evidentiary perspective? What a horrible case, man. But the difference between Barbara Blunt and Courtney Cocos was butchered by law enforcement, and all that'll come out, and when it can come out. Sure. And other than what I've already said on air, Miss Barbara Blunt's case is like, it was a perfect storm against law enforcement. Everything that happened in that case was so, there's nothing that they could have done at the time different. But everything from the bad rains to everything was just so bad against them from an evidence and an investigative standpoint. Right. Now, being able to go back all these years later, and that happened like 6 months after I left the sheriff's office, and I've been being selfish. I remember watching news thinking, glad that one wasn't mine, because I didn't have any that I didn't solve, right? And that would have haunted me. But going back and looking at it now, and being able to come up with fresh angles, but once again, using the podcast, we got leads that were never known. Right. And life was the same thing like Courtney Coco. That crowdsourcing technique, I'm telling you, it's going to be the way of the future when it comes to law enforcement on cold cases. Using the fans to solve the cases. Yeah. People in Livingston Parish putting themselves, just like in Rapides, lifers putting themselves out there, telling me stuff they're not going to tell the cops. Right. Because one reason is they know there's still a murderer out there. Yeah. Right. But they give them the information on the anonymous side that now I can work with. Now, Jason assigned a whole slew of detectives to it. And I know that they meet on it twice a week. I'm talking about fresh blood, new stuff. Not saying that the guys I used to work with did anything wrong, because they didn't. They did an absolute jam up. There's nothing I would have done different at that time. Yeah. But now, using the tips from the lifers and the stuff, we have a new thing to look at. Yeah. And I can't go into more than that. But then when COVID hits, he's got to allocate his resources from everything from fighting COVID in the jail to it's just so much stuff. I mean, it just shut everything down. But guess what? Statute limitations on murder doesn't run out. That's right. And I want justice for Miss Barbara. and we're going to get justice for Courtney.
Very good.
And
Very good.
that'll be a proud day.
So if you need to catch up on those episodes, you can go back on all Woody's social media there, and you can listen to them and really catch up on there's some interesting cases. Let's talk about your giving back a little bit. You're a good guy outside of podcasting, Woody Overton. You're involved with the LOPA, which is the Louisiana Organ Procurement Agency. And I've heard kudos to you, and obviously it works, because I was kind of opened my eyes up. Yeah, it opened my eyes up to organ donation after hearing it. You talk about it. My wife is an organ donor. Back in the day when I was younger, I'm like, that's weird. I'm not, I want to be in one people. Well, right. You never know. And it freaked me out. But after listening to your podcast, that's something that I'm personally going to look into doing. So tell us a little bit about LOPA, what it means.
I got introduced to them. I had a homicide in the private sector where a young girl got killed. But they were able to keep her on life support, and she was an organ donor, and I think she saved 5 lives, and one of them was a doctor out of California. I think got her heart or something. But anyway, but LOPA, Lori Steele, who's with the sheriff's office and is affiliated with LOPA, was at the lives. I was telling you about Livingston Parish Literacy and Technology Center.
Yeah.
And I saw their stuff. And then she asked me to be on her podcast. LOPA has her own podcast, right? They call it The Gifted Life. And I went and sat in Covington in their studio, and the mama, there's a 5-month-old baby that got killed. It ought to be released sometime this month. When it's released, I'll blow it up everywhere. But the mama called in and told the story of how the baby got killed, and how she made the decision to make the baby is still in life support rights. They have a real strict time when they can get the organs to give it to transplants, right? And it's not like it can't be weeks later and stuff.
Yeah.
So anyway, so the mama's there and has to make the decision and to give our baby's organs. Now, you wouldn't think a baby's organs could help anybody. 4 lives that baby saved. And 4 lives, 4 people that are alive today. But I'm going to tell you something, I'm an old hard ass. And I've seen the worst of the worst and everything. But I listen to that mama's story and I'm going to start crying. Yeah. And I said, you know what? I'm gonna make this my cause. And I will never do another podcast or a live or anything where I do not mention LOPA, Louisiana Organ Procurement Agency. It's nonprofit. You can go. I'm so horrible with websites and all that, but the LOPA.org, whatever. They've actually added real life, real crime as a how did you hear about us thing on their website now. And but Livingston Parish Literacy and Technology Center, Kelly Jennings' class was trying to get X amount of people to sign up before the end of the school year. And I said, well, you know what? That's how I first got started. I said, well, put it on podcast. But then the gift of life, when I went in and did their podcast and listened to Mama's story, I was like, oh shit, gotta do something, man. Yeah, there are real people out there dying that are in need of these organs. And it's not just because you sign up to be an organ donor doesn't mean they're going to take your organs. Right. You know what I mean? It's only a certain select people that die under certain circumstances that they can be used. Yeah. But it's powerful, man. Yeah, that's the gift of life. You want to be a hero, save a life. But I said, you're not going to be using it. You know, I mean, your body still goes in the ground. Yeah, that's right. And you know, it's important that you get that message out because someone like me, I had forgot about this over the last. You know, you used to go on the back of your license. I don't know if you can still do that, but you just write in. You know, I'm going to donate my ear or whatever it is, or your liver. Why I chose ear, but anyway, your liver, your kidney. So now I'm sure there's a little more of a process involved in that. But please, all you listeners, reach out to LOPA
and get more information on. This is something that I'm doing because of you. So, and your promotion of this nonprofit.
You want to be a hero. You want to save somebody's life. Do that. And on the slim chance that you actually get selected, you actually, I mean, there's so many people out there that are hooked up on machines. Another one of our lifers, and I'll never say her name. I got contacted. She was in North Carolina at Duke or wherever it is. She had a double lung transplant. This was before I got involved with LOPA at the lives. And family members said, hey, this young lady she's having a hard time. I might not make it, et cetera. She's from Livingston Parish. Yeah. And her family couldn't be out there with her. Her mom was out there with her through the whole surgery and the process. Long story short, they said, you think maybe you could reach out to her, send her a message, something she would get a big kick out. Hell, I got her phone number and called her. And we talked when she's in the hospital. We talked for an hour or whatever on the phone. But she received double lungs from somebody. I mean, she's alive to this day because of it, because somebody donated the organs.
It's huge.
Yeah.
Huge. I mean, saving a life through that act. You're right. I mean, you're a hero. And so during all of my podcasts that I do, I like to ask like a totally unrelated question, something not related to anything. In your case, it's sort of related because you're an investigator. So the Kennedy assassination. Okay. Do you think that Oswald acted alone, or was there more than one shooter?
It's so funny, Jim, that because I'm such a history buff, right? Yeah. And I told you, in my private career, I traveled back and forth between Dallas all the time. I took my wife and kids down to the Dealey Plaza and all that. I've seen every movie or every documentary. I've read every book on it, et cetera. And there's no way in hell. I bought the same rifle that Oswald used, and I have it in my house now. And I've actually fired it to try to do it. There's no way in hell that he did it by himself.
So there's definitely, I agree. I concur. What's your thoughts, Q, on that?
I'm telling you, I think it was probably, the mafia lost all the casinos, et cetera, in Cuba. Yeah. And all that. It was a perfect storm of things, whatever it may be. I have some personal history, family history. My mom's uncle was a registrar of voters in Jackson, Louisiana, and Lee Harvey Oswald actually tried to register to vote there. Wow. And right before the year before the assassination, 62 or 61, whatever it was, and he turned them down. But that's in one of the books. But no, absolutely no way in hell the guy that.
I agree 100%. I think Oswald was exactly what he said.
It's like the worst. Right? Yeah, he was a ball. I think they set him up. But it's an Italian-made. People think it's a Russian-made rifle, but it's not. It's an Italian-made rifle, and it's the worst. It's got to be the shittiest rifle in the entire world. There's no way. And then the magic bullet and all that.
Yeah, pristine. When Connolly's the one they found on his gurney, and it was like it never. You've hunted your whole life. I mean, when you fire a bullet and it hits bone, it totally deforms itself. This bullet looked like it had barely been touched. And so I agree with you on that. So Woody, how can people find the Real Life, Real Crime podcast?
I guess you can Google Woody Overton, but it's www.realliferealcrime.com, or we're on I'm at on Insta, which is a new thing for me, which I'm enjoying. Insta is at Real Life Real Crime or at Overton Woody. We must have like 6 or 7 Facebook pages.
You can pretty much Google it on YouTube or YouTube it, or we're everywhere.
Anywhere you can listen to a podcast, we're on it.
Yeah, just hit Real Life Real Crime; it'll pull it up. And also want to mention you are the 2019
I forgot,
People's Choice Podcast winner.
That's crazy, right? In 5 months, we were 5 months old at the time. We were nominated in 3 categories, made the finals in 2, and won it. That's
awesome.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And it wasn't our fans that voted on it. I mean, we got nominated, but the final vote was 2,000 people of this, the podcast committee selected, and independent of each other, and they gave them the categories to listen to. So it wasn't even lifers. They gave us the final award. So it was for drama and storytelling.
Yeah. And so I think the voting might be still open for this year. So
I don't even, I hadn't even checked, to be honest with you.
Yeah, if you can, there's a link on Facebook. So go to that, and if you enjoy Real Life, Real Crime, hit that fan voting button. I believe it's through Podcast Magazine, and vote for these good folks over here. I'm gonna link all your stuff to this video as well.
The Podcast Magazine is actually a separate thing. That 2019 Podcast of the Year award is like the Emmys for podcasts.
Oh, gotcha.
The Podcast Magazine, we were number 1, and then they published that in Forbes magazine, because Podcast Magazine just came out. The number 1 is as the number 1 hottest out of all genres podcasts in the world. And with their first edition, we were number 1. The second edition, we were like number 3. The third edition, we were like number 32 or something, because the Podcast Magazine has now become so popular. All the big shows are doing whatever. So I forgot about that. That was another blessing too. Yeah.
Now you outside of the United States, what's the biggest country?
Australia.
I knew it.
Australia.
I knew it.
They love us in Australia. We were going to Australia. We were supposed to go to Australia. They're a penal colony,
yes,
right?
That's right.
And they love the cursing and the whatever Woodyisms or whatever. But we were supposed to go to Australia in October. The 4-city tour.
Oh, they love you over there, man.
I have 3 of my Dream Team moderators are from Australia.
Really?
A lot of my moderators from around the world, Canada, Australia, and different places. But we're in 127 countries.
127.
I didn't know they had that many countries.
Yeah.
I'll go read the list. I don't even have of them more.
I couldn't name them, that's for sure. Not all those. Thank you for doing this podcast, man.
Pleasure.
I really appreciate it. I have a parting gift for you, which is that cup you see right there. I'm going to kind of hold this up, though, so we can show the camera, because our buddies at SportNCenter made it.
That's right.
And they support me in my podcast in a lot of ways. They do that in-house at SportNCenter. They have a laser machine that does it. So they can...
I'm going to make...
There you go. I love it. I would also like to thank the king of all media himself.
He's been good to me.
Yeah. He's not Howard Stern. He's McHugh David, though, for engineering this podcast. The Livingston Parish News for the space. All you viewers and listeners, for your support. Please follow me on Instagram, like me on Facebook, subscribe to me on YouTube, and check out the website at paintpodcast.com. It sure helps me out. I want to remind you to love your community, support local business, and keep leading.
Appreciate it.
And I've always wanted to say this. Don't let Woody catch you on Murder by You.
Peace.
Peace out. See you next time.
Thanks, Jim. You're awesome.
Stephanie Berthelot and the crew at SR Enterprise can handle it all, from sheetrock to texture to paint. Give Stephanie a call at 504-432-9284. SR Enterprise, where they spread the paint and you spread the word. Tiffany, thank you for being here. We met through our affiliation with the Livingston Parish Chamber of Commerce, so we're going to talk about your work with them. We're going to kind of circle around to that. I want to get into to your business, obviously, HomeKey Mortgage, and I also want to talk a little bit about you personally, dig into how you feel about the mortgage lending industry is performing, especially with the pandemic going on. And so with all of that, welcome Tiffany Sicard.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
Well, you're very welcome. We're happy you're here, and we want to talk a little bit about your background. You're obviously a mortgage lending guru, but we want to talk about how long you've been in the industry and those sorts of things.
Well, I've been in the mortgage industry for about 22 years now, and
prior to that, what did you do?
Well, straight out of high school, I started at Louisiana State Troopers Association doing some cold calling, basically telemarketing, I guess is what more people refer to it as now. Kind of where I picked up a little bit of sales and interaction with some folks. And then from there, I went to work for Hibernian National Bank. Kind of got the financing end of that. They're Capital One now. From there, I was introduced to a young man who owned A1 Mortgage Services, and within his company, he had a telemarketing firm. Basically, people were calling homeowners to try and help them save some money. And from there, I was offered a position within the company to be a loan officer. And here I am now, 22 years later. I've pretty much worked every aspect in the mortgage industry that you can think of. I have been the loan officer. I have been the sales manager. I have been the underwriter, the processor, pretty much every position. But I think it's also helped me learn how important everyone's job is, especially when wanting to fulfill my dream of owning my own company, being able to understand what my team has to go through on a day-to-day basis, and just kind of understand their position and what we do to make sure that we're as efficient as possible.
Yeah, definitely. And congratulations on that. Obviously, all of us here are thrilled that you were able to kind of realize your dream of doing that. You're a leader. You're a strong businesswoman, and so we're going to dig into a little bit of that as well. Before we do, I want to kind of get some mortgage industry questions out of the way, some things that, someone that's not knee deep into that industry may or may not understand or know. One of those things is the many different types of mortgage loans that are available. You have VA loans, you have conventional loans, you have FHA loans, you have rural development loans. So tell us a little bit about each of those. We'll start with FHA. What type of loan is that, and who does that benefit?
FHA loans would, in my opinion, would help someone who may have had some credit challenges or things like that, because there's not as much red tape and overlays on those types of loans for someone who doesn't have a whole lot of down payment. So it helps them basically get into a home if they've had some credit challenges in the past with as little as 3.5% down. If they haven't had any credit challenges in the past, it can also help them with just having a lower down payment to be able to get into a home versus conventional, which sometimes if you're over certain income qualifications, you don't qualify for their 3% down payment programs that they have. You may have to come up with 5 or more. Just depends on each individual's really what they're wanting to achieve.
Sure. Yeah. And it's good to know that there are options out there. I mean, things happen in life. People might go through a struggle like a flood, for example, that may have wreak havoc on their credit for a little while. And it was something that wasn't even necessarily their fault. So it's good to know that they have loans for people maybe that had a tough situation that had an effect on their credit. People go through divorces, which cause, in some cases, credit issues that may or may not be directly related to them. So it's good to know that loan's out there. Let's let's talk about VA loans for a little while. So VA, obviously, most people are going to tie that right into the military. I know it's a military loan, but what are some advantages for military guys and gals that may be looking to get home finance?
Well, a VA loan, just depending on the individual's certificate of eligibility, it can qualify for a veteran or a spouse of a surviving spouse for a veteran, basically, and you can get 100% financing. Depending on that certificate of eligibility, they may qualify for an exemption of the upfront funding fee, or if they have to pay the upfront mortgage funding fee, they roll that into your loan amount to where you're still getting 100% financing, but you don't have any monthly mortgage insurance. So when I say mortgage insurance, that's not homeowners. I have a lot of people that get that confused, especially someone that may be a first-time home buyer, someone that's just looking into mortgages. But basically what that is any type of loan that you put less than 20% down, unless you choose an option of doing upfront mortgage insurance premium paid at once, you have to pay a monthly mortgage insurance premium until you have at least 20% equity in your home. With a VA loan, you will never have that monthly mortgage insurance amount. So basically, a veteran or someone who qualifies for a VA loan could basically get more bang for their buck as far as qualifying because they don't have that extra expense added to their monthly note for mortgage insurance.
Gotcha. And that's a big deal. And for these graduating seniors that maybe they don't want to jump right into college, but they want to serve their country, there's another option and reason to join the military is to take advantage of these type of loans. It's almost like an incentive, from the government. You serve your country, and we're going to offer you this as a trade-off. And I do know some guys that got into the military right out of high school, and if it wasn't for doing that, they wouldn't have been able to get it home. So it's a good program. Now, rural development. Here's one. I have no idea what this is. What is a rural development loan?
A rural development loan is basically it's an RD loan, and it basically gives you 100% financing to where you can borrow basically up to 100% of not only the sales price, but of the appraised value. So say you have someone that's looking at purchasing a home and it comes in appraised for a few $1,000s more than what it's selling for, and the seller didn't necessarily agree to pay all of the closing costs. So you can actually purchase the home for the sales price amount and actually roll in some of your closing costs as long as it appraises for a little bit more, and not have to worry about the extra money out of pocket. So that way you're getting really 100% financing.
Wow.
So that's just an option on the table there. Most oftentimes we do have sellers that cooperate, especially if they know someone is doing an RD loan, and assist with the closing cost. But a lot of times, especially now, since a lot of areas were rezoned, I've had customers that fell short with that as far as what the seller could contribute. And the house did come in appraised for a little bit more, and they ran into issues where they were a little short of funds for closing because it needed flood insurance. And some of those premiums can be quite hefty. So it allowed them to be able to roll in some of that extra money that they didn't necessarily have set aside or in their account to be able to take care of that extra expense that they weren't expecting.
That's interesting. And in this area, especially Livingston Parish, there's a lot of homes, especially now, that have to carry flood insurance. So that's a good point that you bring up there with the financing. So a conventional loan, is that just a standard straight up loan you put? I don't know, what's the percentage typically that you would put down on a conventional loan?
For a first-time home buyer, conventional, just depending, and there's income limitations. And I want to go back to RD. There's also income limitations for that type of loan. So you just have to be wary of of that. So there's different.
And when you say limitations, you mean you cannot make over a certain amount?
Over a certain amount. If it's a family of 1 to 3 versus a family that is 5 or more. So you get a little bit more house that you could qualify, more income for you qualifying. So in regards to the conventional, there's same thing with that. If you're a first-time home buyer, you can get away with as little as 3% down, but there are income limitations on some. And then on one, there is, as long as you've never owned a home before, those income limitations may not qualify. I mean, will affect you. And then most do the 5% down. I have a lot of agents recently that didn't even know anything about the 3% down. So where the conventional loan can be really, really helpful, and you kind of touched on this earlier, a lot of people go through a lot of different changes in life. Louisiana is a community property state. So say you have a couple that may be going through a divorce and they need to buy a home, but they have a home together and they're waiting on it to sell or whichever. All your government loans are going to require for us to pull both spouses' credit. And you have to qualify, whether the other spouse is on the loan or not, you have to qualify with both spouses' debt. Whereas if you go conventional, they have to take into consideration that you're married, but conventional doesn't look at your spouse's debts like a government loan would.
Gotcha.
So
that makes sense.
May, if someone, makes a good amount of money and they could qualify with both until everything gets worked out, this often helps them be able to purchase, or say they've never bought a home before, but they were married. This allows them to be able to purchase a home and not have to have those extra layers that the governmental loans might have for them to keep them from being able to qualify.
That's interesting. And so there's really loans for every situation almost. And that's a good thing. We want people to have options. We want people to have their own home. What you do is very important in your industry, because from a standpoint of purchasing your own home, it's almost like to put it in terms of myself, when I, and this is going to go way off the rails a little bit, but I'm going to tie it back in, trust me. When I found out I was having my son, my wife was pregnant, we were having a kid. I found out I was having my son. I was 27, I believe, at the time. I grew up that fast. Within 5 minutes of hearing that, I went from, whoa, it's not just about me anymore, to I really need to grow up and be a man and figure out what I'm going to do with my life. I wasn't always this put together guy that you see right now, believe it or not. So I had to do that. And so with owning a home also, you kind of get that I'm growing up, I'm getting out in the world, I'm becoming a woman, or I'm becoming a man with some responsibility. And so it's very important what you do. And I'm very glad to hear that they do tailor make loans for different, because people are not cookie cutters. I say it all the time. Life situations are not always the same, and there are exceptions to things. And that kind of leads me into another point. And I'm going to bring this up. This is, there's a lot of technology in the world now that we didn't have 10 years ago. A company, I'll use a company online called Rocket Mortgage. Okay. And Rocket Mortgage has become very popular. People truly believe that they can go on the internet in 5 minutes, they can qualify for a loan and get all these details. Now, some of the nightmares that I have seen with this is that it never ends up the way it starts out with those type of online mortgages. But more than anything else, and you and I were talking previous to the show about this a little bit, is the human side of doing business with an actual person rather than a program. And that's why I bring that up, is because there are situations in life that a program cannot dissect, but a person can. We used to call it back in the day rehashing loans, back when I would deal with guys that did loans. And they would have to rehash with some of these loan officers a situation. Maybe Maybe this person missed a couple of payments on their car note, but maybe there was a reason for that. Maybe this person was in the hospital. Maybe something happened to their parents. Things in life happen, and you can't get those qualifications off of a program because all it's seeing is ones and zeros, and so obviously I would imagine you encourage and everybody else encourages human interaction, especially when it comes to the one biggest purchase of your life. Most people's, not one, the only one they'll ever make in most cases, but the largest purchase by far that people make is a mortgage. So I would encourage anybody to deal with like a HomeKey mortgage rather than putting all their faith in a Rocket Mortgage online.
I would absolutely agree.
Leanne's Flooring by Design, conveniently located on Florida Boulevard in Denham Springs. Leanne can service all of your flooring needs. Give them a call for an appointment at 523-7004. At Leanne's Flooring by Design, they stand behind everything you walk on.
In my time as being a loan officer, being in the mortgage industry, it has always been important to me about establishing relationships. Because at the end of the day, if I am just doing a mortgage loan for a paycheck, and we all have to support our families, if that is my sole reason for doing it, then I'm doing the wrong thing. Because as far as the way I look at it is the long-term relationship. I have customers that I did their original loans 20-something years ago. I've got one right now that I'm redoing that I did 15 years ago. I may not be, and I've gone through a couple of companies since then, just because of different things that's happened in my career and advancements that has presented itself. But they have found me, and that's because I built that relationship with them. And not only building the relationship, but just educating my buyers to know that they can reach out to me, and them not to just become a loan number in a system, and know that they can't call me and ask me any question that they may have. And takes me to my next thing is, up until COVID occurred, I attended every loan closing for the simple fact that no matter what my clients went through or what hurdles we jumped to get them to the closing table, if I always felt like if one thing went wrong, that was going to be the first thing that they remembered. And it was important to me to be there for them if they had any additional questions, and just knowing that they could always count on me. And not only that, is that shows them that if I'm going to go to that extent for them, when they're referring out to friends and family and hearing of someone else that may want a loan, they're going to think back to me. And not only are they going to think back to me, they're going to think of that realtor or that agent that referred them to me as well, and refer back to them for them to get that continued business. Because if I'm communicating with everyone throughout the process and being able to get that return referral, then I'm doing justice to everyone in the transaction, versus to just look at it as, oh, I have another loan under my belt. It's about building that relationship for the future loan and the future client.
So, and what I hear from all that is you actually care. You actually care about your clients and that's passion. That's a huge thing, and that is a aspect of leaders. And of course, this show is all about leadership, and that's a huge aspect of leaders that they all share, is that they're very passionate about what they do and they actually care. So I'm glad you brought that up, because that comes across, and that's things that people need to see and they need to feel out of your business. And I've seen it. I've known you a while, and so I'm glad that you brought that up. That's a very good point. So some buyers, they have issues in different areas of financing. So maybe they don't make enough money, or maybe maybe their down payment isn't where it needs to be in order to get them qualified for the house that they want to get. What if I'm a buyer and I came to you, Tiffany, and I said, look, I've got a house in mind that I want to get. I need to get a loan for it, and I need to know what I need to do to qualify. What would you recommend that buyers stay very cognizant of, let's say 6 months before they start kind of looking into the house market? Should they, is it 20% the magic number for a down payment? Is a work history of so many years kind of important? What would you advise?
There's several things that's important there if you're interested in, say, a first-time home buyer that's just looking to buy, for you to start just being aware of. And I'm going through it with my oldest son right now, is that you just want to make sure that 2 years on the job is typically what they like to see. However, if you have someone who has had established credit and they are looking to buy and they just say graduated high school and they're going to be paid a salary, then that person could, straight out of college, as long as they have credit history that qualifies them for whichever program that they're trying to purchase on, would allow them to be able to buy as long as they had a salary. If it is someone who is paid hourly, keep in mind if you're making any overtime, that you're going to have a 2-year history of that overtime in order for you to use that to be able to qualify, or they're just going to qualify you on your hourly.
So they would basically base that off of kind of your tax returns or something.
Correct.
I got you.
So say you just have an hourly waged borrower and they made overtime. You want to make sure that if you had another job prior to your current job, so say you had 2 jobs in the last 2 years, but you didn't make any overtime at your previous job and you're making a whole lot of overtime now at your new job, well, we won't always be able to use that overtime until you have a 2-year history of it, because they want to see that it's likely to continue.
Yeah.
And so unless you have a 2-year history of that, typically we don't know, and we can't just state that you're going to make it because we don't really have a history of it. So, but a salary would be different. That's something that we would just average, over the 12 months if you have a salary. So say you went from being in one position within a company and where you were paid hourly, and then you were promoted up and you are now salary. So now we won't average your income because you got a promotion. We'll base everything off of that salary versus basing it on your hourly wage and if you made any overtime or bonuses or anything like that, because it's kind of a game changer. So you just want to be cautious as far as like your income. I run into a lot of times where someone is commissioned and they don't always have a 2-year history, or say they were working in sales where they were commissioned and then they decided to go get a job for a month or so where they were hourly, and then they went back to commission. You have to have a 2-year history of that, because you want to show that compensating factor of how strong, your stability as far as you being able to qualify, which right now with COVID, a lot of people are having a tough time with that because certain businesses, if they're not making sales because they either don't have the merchandise to sell or it's being held up from being able to be shipped here, just things like that. So it just...
Yeah, that makes total
just
sense.
Being cautious of how you're paid and how you're going to qualify, and just make sure to educate yourself about your situation, because I can tell you in 22 years, I have not done one single loan that was the same. And it is so, so important that even 6 months out from buying, the first step is pre-approval, to where you can take that moment, get with a loan officer and just go over all the Q&As of everything. even if it's not them pulling your credit, because I know a lot of people are cautious about, I don't want anybody pulling my credit because that's going to drop my score. It doesn't really, not like whenever you're going to buy a car. Now, if you start rate shopping and you just start, one person turns you down or says they can't do your loan, and then you try and you start getting, multiple people pulling your credit, that's could ultimately drastically drop your score. But if you just have one person that pulls just to kind of get an idea of what's going on, because just to try and help you get an understanding of where your credit is and where you need to be, I highly suggest that, because it would be better for you to be prepared because houses sell so quickly, especially right now in our market, that if you get 6 months down the road and you haven't crossed all your T's and dotted all your I's and that house comes up for sale, that person that has that pre-approval letter, that's who's getting that house, versus the person that is just now getting pre-qualified and trying to figure out what they can qualify for or what they need to do. So it's better to most certainly always have all that together.
Yeah, I would imagine. And there's a lot of people in a situation where I'll use myself as an example. I'm on salary, but I also get a bonus that in some years can be significant. So it's something that, my job history is such that 21 years in the same company, it'd be real easy to kind of track that. But what you're looking for and what those lenders are looking for is consistency. So you, especially in a bonus situation, you don't want a guy to have a real good year or gal where they make a $50,000 bonus and then the next year they make a $4,000 bonus. Well, you can't really average that in as if they were making $25,000 extra dollars a year. You've got to kind of look and say, wait a minute, this was an anomaly a little bit, and you kind of dropped off here. But you bring up a good point in that with COVID and the situation that we're dealing with now, it's not just a standpoint of the sales not being there. I think the sales even from a retail standpoint are good. I mean, they were up, believe it or not, within the last, if you compare it to last year's retail sales. The issue is more of getting product and being able to get it. You brought up a good point there. I am knee deep in that in my industry because the demand for those products are there. The problem is, if a company has one guy and they have a giant facility, okay, 1 million square foot facility, they have one guy in that facility that gets COVID, they have to shut that entire facility down. And so getting product from there to here becomes an issue because they've had to shut down their facility to disinfect everything, which in a case like that could take a week. And it has backlogged everybody. And these are, multi-worldwide companies that are kind of going through that have hubs here in the United States. So,
yeah. And then also just to catch you there is we don't want to overqualify someone. So say you were averaging, a $10,000 bonus and then this year you make a $20,000 bonus. Well, I don't want to average your income on your $20,000 bonus because then I could possibly be setting you up for failure next year, because what if you don't have those sales next year? Then I just overqualified you for a house that may potentially cause you a hardship next year when you don't have that bonus and you have an added expense that comes up and you lose your home. And so it's just educating the buyers and making sure that they're aware and understanding why these guidelines are in place. Yeah. It's not because we don't want you to have the home of your dreams. We don't want to set you up for failure, potentially losing your home. We saw that back in 2010, 2012. You had a lot of people that were losing their homes because they couldn't afford their houses anymore because they were either set up on ARM loans or they were set up in a loan that they didn't even know that they were set up in, and they all of a sudden couldn't afford their house because we had loans 20 years ago, which a lot of people don't know about, no income, no assets, and stated income, stated assets. And it was basically you had a credit score that met the certain criteria, we gave you a loan. And
Yeah,
our
they
market
didn't
crashed,
care. That's right.
And we don't want to see that again. And so I think that as far as the types of loans that we do and the guidelines that have been put in place by NAM and LMLA, which is who governs our loans, has done a great job in making sure that we continue to stay educated on that, as well as educating our buyers to letting them know it and understand that as well.
I agree. And, you bring up arm loans and stuff like that. I know a lot of people back in those days, and I'll just sidebar to this, but they would get loans and second mortgages, okay? And on the ends of these second mortgages were these giant balloon payments. And that's really caused a major issue back 2008, 2009 especially, because number one, they weren't really qualifying to begin with. You wish everybody cared like you did, where you made a statement a minute ago and you said, I don't really want to overqualify you because I don't, essentially you don't want that person being forced into foreclosure because they got too much of a house for what they could afford. You wish all loan officers had that attitude. Some, sadly, the attitude is I want to close as many as possible because I get paid per however many I close. So that's awesome. And that speaks to you and what type of person you are. Now, let me ask you this. Let's say that someone does business with Tiffany and they're qualified and we're 20 days out from closing and hitting that closing table, and they make a mistake. They do I've always heard that you don't want your credit pulled at all between the time that you get qualified for that loan and the time that you actually close on that loan. True or false?
That is true.
Yeah. And I would imagine even something as slight as pulling your credit for a Dillard's card or Toys R Us card or you name it, those things can really throw a monkey wrench in there. Is that the most common thing that happens usually?
Yeah. That or someone goes and opens up an account for furniture or appliances for a house they don't have yet. So I try and, again, having someone up front versus, as you stated earlier, someone like Rocket Mortgage, is you have someone there to guide you through those steps, and you can not only see them in person by appointment due to COVID now, or Zoom or however, but you have someone that you can pick up the phone and talk to versus doing something automated or just shooting something through a system. Someone that can actually talk you through the aspects of your loan to understand any restructuring that may need to be done, because every loan has to be customized to the individuals that are seeking the loan because everyone's circumstances are different.
Absolutely. And that makes all the sense in the world. And I'm sure it's, you go through all these hard stages and it's like, man, we got 2 weeks here. Just don't do anything to just hold off on getting that furniture. But people do it and it's totally innocent. I mean, I'm sure a lot of them are just like, man, I want to go ahead and get this card so that I can get this furniture. And so don't do that. If you qualify for that loan, just leave everything alone until after the closing, and then you can go, haywire or whatever. So you talked about referrals a little bit earlier, and very important in the mortgage industry to begin with. I mean, whether you're a realtor or you're a loan officer or you name it, a closing company, who would you say is your best referral source? Like when you network, who are the people that you really like to network, talk to, let them get to know Tiffany and HomeKey Mortgage? Who is the most valuable? I know all people are valuable, but who is it that's like, man, I need to meet that person? What type of industry? Is it realtors?
I guess you could say agents, but really I don't really have one that
work with everybody. Even
I
paint
work with
salesmen.
anyone.
Paint salesmen are great.
I work with anyone that basically just has the same work ethic as me. Those are the ones that stand out. I mean, I have realtor partners of all different aspects. Yeah, I mean, just I have referrals that come from car salesmen. I have referrals that come from just even past companies that I've worked for, just because the people that I dealt with when I was there know the way I do business and they like it. And so they refer business to me. I have people that I have met within leadership, just being part of Rotary introduced me to a lot of people. It's actually how McHugh and I got really close. Someone else that got really close to through leadership, met you. Just anyone that shares my same work ethic of just making sure that they're not just there to, at the end of the day, get a paycheck. They're actually there to do good by the customer. Those are the people that I want to work with, and those are the people that I do work with. And it's worked out pretty good for me to be sitting here. I mean, in my industry, to be 22 years in, we're considered dinosaurs, basically, because not a lot of people actually last as long as I have in my industry, because a lot of people are like, oh, I can make good money doing that. And they don't realize all the work that goes into it. And so they get in there and they make, a quick few dollars, and then they pan out and go and do something else. Right. And so there's not many of us that are still left out there that have as many years probably that I have under my belt.
And I think that's a huge thing that everybody should look for in any company they do business with, is longevity. There was a time that I'm sure Tiffany was 2 years into the mortgage business, and thank God for those people that took a shot and a chance with Tiffany, and it obviously worked out. Same thing with me in my business, but it's hard to replace experience, and the reason for that, especially in your industry, I would imagine, is the fact that in your industry, it is so serious. It is such a commitment that if you don't really deal with someone that has experience, vast experience like you have, what you run into is hurdles that maybe can be jumped. For example, don't get jumped because maybe that person just doesn't have the experience. So that's something that you bring to the table that I would encourage any listener of this podcast to seek you for, if nothing else, would be the experience. SportNCenter in Denham Springs is your one-stop shop for team sports equipment, school uniforms, and promotional goods. Conveniently located next to the Antique Village since 1977. SportNCenter, your business means everything to them because your name rides on everything they do.
Well, that and the reason why me and my partner decided to go the realm of going a broker versus an actual lender, or being affiliated with a bank or some of the other correspondent lending sections of mortgages out there, is we decided to become a broker. That way we can actually work with several lenders and actually look across the board to see which particular program and which particular lender that we have best suits our customer, and making sure they do get that best deal at that best rate, and not just having this spreadsheet of this is the loan programs, this is the rate, this is the qualifications for this. We want it to be able to have that flexibility and have some of that red tape kind of pulled back on what programs we had available, and making sure that we had it available across the board with multiple of our lenders that we are affiliated with, and be able to get them not only that program that suits them, but at the best rate that we possibly could as well, instead of just having rates just set across the board for each program.
Gotcha. And that makes a lot of sense. So you brought up Rotary earlier, and you're a very active, community-minded lady. You're a Leadership Livingston graduate. You're a very active Chamber of Commerce member. You brighten people's day with your buzzing the Livingston Parish, town of Livingston Parish, little gift baskets. Thank you for that, by the way. And if you don't know what those are, check it out online. Tiffany really brings a smile to people's faces, and that's something that is a part of your personality that still blows my mind. Is just you make people feel like you really do care, and you go out of your way for people, and that's an impressive thing. Now, how important is it to balance your life as a business-minded woman and giving back to your community? How important is it to have that balance? You see a lot of people these days, and they're pushing it. They're going 90-0 in that business world, but they're not stopping, and they're not doing enough for their community. What does it do for you? How does it make you feel personally?
Well, I lost my mom at a very young age, and I guess it's been a lot of those adversities that I've gone through that kind of is that part of me that wants to give back to my community and then just set the example for my children. Not only am I a wife, I'm a mother of 5 beautiful children, and they are my team. They're as much as my team at home as my team at work, and that balance between the two is very important. And just setting an example for them and letting them know that there is someone out there that cares. There is someone out there that is willing to help and that doesn't have an alternative motive for it, that there still are genuine people out there. And so at any and every opportunity that I have, I want to give back, and I want to show others that life's going to throw you a lot of things, but the good thing about it is you are given that one life, and it's your choice what you choose to do with it. And I could have took every wrong path that was thrown at me growing up, said, oh, I didn't have a mom, I didn't have my dad in my life growing up, and took a different route. But I chose to take the right path, and just seeing that, and just the mentors that I had growing up, just showed me that if you do good and you embed that in others, you may not always make that change in that one person, but if you keep on doing it, eventually you're going to make that change in one person. And as long as you're changing one person's life, you're making a difference. And
that's exactly right. I couldn't agree with I can't even add to that. That was very well said and true, and again speaks to who you are. So on that subject a little bit, certainly you've got to have some hobbies. You got to have some things you like to do outside of bringing a smile to everybody else's face and doing what you do in the home lending world. What do you like to do to unwind?
Just hanging out at my house with some friends, my family, all about my family, and just really, I really stay busy a lot just because it's what I do. I don't know I guess it's just I have to have somewhere to tunnel all my energy that I have all the time, and my family thankfully enjoys doing that with me. I know one thing that I do every year for my birthday, since they began doing it, is the trash pickup. It actually always falls the Saturday after my birthday, and so my kids even come out with me, and we go and we try and clean up Livingston Parish and pick up trash, and that's one of the programs through the chamber. And I just love having my family by my side, and sharing that same passion of giving back to our community, because we all live here, we all make our living here, and if we can make it beautiful and get others involved in helping it stay that way, then we're going to continue to grow. It's going to continue to help all our businesses grow, and we're all going to grow as well, because we're going to learn about other individuals, things that we didn't know, and just keep that positive going.
I think that's, yeah. And that's, as man, I don't know. I used to think I was kind of out of the realm, because I'm a person that is I always have struggled with balance. So you push and you push, and anything I do, I try to give over 100%. And the issue with that becomes something somewhere suffers. And so, throughout my life, that's something I've had to work on, is balance. And I'll never be that guy that can just sit down and watch TV. It's just not me. And I'm fond of telling my wife that's just not how I'm built. I'm just not built to sit down and watch a movie. Now, I can watch the movie and do something else at the same time, and believe it or not, I'm a master of multitasking, but it's something that typically strong performers and high performers struggle with. And you seem to have found a good balance there, and I look up to you for that, and maybe I can balance a little bit better in the future on that. Now we're going to have a little fun. And what I did was I went online and I came up with some fun facts for us to discuss. And these are things in the mortgage lending industry that I just found interesting. And so I'm going to talk about that with you. So in the mortgage lending industry, the loan percentage down, the most common percentage, I'm sure you know this, but was 10%. So I found that interesting. I always thought it would be 20, but 10% down is pretty much the most common. That's McHugh's phone ringing, y'all. Here's an interesting one.
Actually, to go back to your balance, that's actually, I have to set an alarm at 3:00 every day for whenever my kids were in school to make sure someone was getting my girls off the bus. So that's part of my balance.
Oh, that's awesome.
And making sure someone's there. So that's what that alarm was. So I know school's not in right now, but I leave it all year long. That way when school starts back, I don't forget. That way I keep myself in that rhythm of knowing 3:00 every day.
That's the look, and there's nothing wrong with that. My wife will tell me, we've got 3 kids, they're all in high school, so they do band, they do all these things, and there's a lot my wife has to do that thank God that she's the high performer she is, and handles a lot of these things that would drive me totally bananas. But she'll tell me, well, you need to do, she kind of tells me you need to do this and this and this. And I'm like, text me because I'll never remember it off the top of my head. And I'm like, if you don't text me, I won't be able to write it down later on, because I go through my texts at night and I work off of lists. That's how I've always worked. Old fashioned piece of paper and a list. And I cross that puppy off every day.
Every morning. That's
it. And so, anyway, I get it. Here's another interesting fun fact. So according to CNN Money, more than a third of the people they surveyed had no idea what APR was, annual percentage rate. They didn't know what that meant. And that's another good reason this podcast is so good to do, is because we're educating people here. We're not only educating them on how great you are, how great that your mortgage company is, but we're also educating them on facts like different types of loans and things like that they may not know. Annual percentage rate was something a third of people, 33%. I never would have thought that.
So what's an APR, Jim?
So an APR is an annual percentage rate that every year, I'm trying to think how I could word this. So every year you have a rate of, let's say 5% is your APR. So every year your rate that you pay on interest is 5%. And then that compounds every year. Is that correct? So the next year is 5%. And the next year it adds another 5%. Then tell me.
An APR is your annual percentage rate. Basically, you pay some fees up front that affect your APR. So a lot of people, whenever you get your initial disclosures when you're buying a house, you'll get a loan document that is called your loan estimate. And on that loan estimate, it will give you an interest rate and it will give you an APR. Some of your costs that you pay up front are tax deductible to you if you itemize, consult a CPA for that. But they take those fees and they average them over the life of your loan. And as they amortize those over the life of your loan, that's how they calculate your APR, because it's the amount of money that you would pay over the life of your loan, if taking into consideration the calculation of those fees on top of your loan amount.
And this is why I am part of the 33% people. I had no idea.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
So
I did not know.
I have so many people that are like, I thought you said my interest rate was this. What is this? And they think that the APR is something that affects their payment, and it does and it doesn't, because your APR and how your interest is calculated is your interest is calculated off of your balance. But if you have some fees that you pay, because those fees are tax deductible to you, if you itemize, again, consult a CPA, averaging them over the life of your loan. Yeah, sorry. Thank you for finishing that. That is how they come up with your APR. A lot of people choose to write that off all at once. A lot of people tend to do it over the life of their loan. If it's your forever home, that's something I would suggest. Average life of a loan before someone buys, sells, or refinances is 3 to 5 years. So most people do it all up front. So, but that is how you get your APR.
Interesting. And also, why you never listen to a paint rep when it comes to financing, you contact this lady right here. So here's another interesting fun fact. In Scotland, y'all probably know this, but people paint their front doors red once their house is paid off. Interesting. Why? I don't know, but they do, in fact, paint their doors red. So if you're in Scotland and you see a red door, it means they follow the Dave Ramsey program, probably. Very good. In October 1981, mortgage rates reached 18.6%. A $250,000 mortgage had a mortgage monthly principal and interest payment, you ready for this? $3,896 a month just in principal and interest. As astronomical as that rate sounds, people were still buying homes, and it was considered a good investment. I would have, that seems crazy right now, does it not? Especially with rates being as low as they are right now. But yeah, that's $4,000 house note.
22 years ago, I was giving people 8 and 9% interest rates because that was the lowest that was offered at that time. And I mean, I had people just praise me because I was giving them that type of interest rate. And now to have people where back in March when rates just absolutely plummeted and I was giving people rates as low as 2.75, 2.875, and they were like, no, I think it's going to go lower. And I'm like, no, I don't think you understand. This is low. But honestly, in the refinance booms that we've had over this past several years of interest rates kind of fluctuating up and down, but as hitting rock bottom as they have in the past few years, I've actually done less refinances when they were at their lowest than when they started rising. It's like people are like, oh no, rates are going up. But what they don't realize is by the time that the general public hears that interest rates are going down, our market has already adjusted to that. So rates are already what they are going to be.
Right.
So that's just something to keep in mind also, is that just because you hear, like a lot of people are like, oh, interest rates are going to go to zero. Just because they drop
that's the interest rate to the bank, not the interest rate to the consumer.
Correct.
So it's different.
Correct.
The bank is borrowing the money at zero. Correct. But John Q. Public is not going to get the money at zero. The bank's got to make money.
Because they have to be able to pay their employees to be able to process that loan, to be able to service that loan and take care of all the responsibilities of your loan to make sure that you're getting the right loan and everything.
Yeah, and people got to make money. I mean, you don't fault someone for making a profit. There's nothing wrong with that. And so your advice obviously would be, if you like the rate and it sounds good to you now, jump on it, because it's kind of like time in the stock market. You don't ever know. It could be 2.8% right now, and someone says, yeah, but I think it's going to go to 2.6. Well, maybe not. Maybe it goes to 3.6 and you just cost yourself money. It could go both ways.
Yeah, and then it goes back to that relationship, that you have with your buyer and finding out what their goal is. If their goal is just to get a house and pay the minimum payment over the life of the 30-year loan or the 20-year loan, just to pay whatever to get by, then yeah, be very rate cautious. But if your main goal is to get that house and pay it off as soon as possible, most mortgage loans that are done nowadays is a simple interest loan. So you can pay more towards your principal balance to pay it off early. You're not going to be penalized. So then you really don't have to worry so much about the thought of and the longevity of what you're going to pay at interest. If you're steadily hitting down that principal every month, your interest is only going to be paid on that principal balance. So every time you make a principal payment, that interest is going to go down more, and your principal that you're chopping away each month is going to go up further.
Yeah, so you can make like one payment a year, I've heard, and it actually knocks like 5 years or something like that off your note. One extra payment.
Just one extra payment towards principal.
And I would advise anybody do that, even, bi-weekly payments. If your mortgage is due on the first every month and you start paying it every 2 weeks, just divide the payment in half, and every 2 weeks you make a payment, you will knock a significant amount off. And really, you're investing the exact same amount of money over that.
Because you're attacking that principal every 2 weeks versus every 30 days and allowing that interest to accumulate on that balance.
Exactly. And an easy thing to do. I started doing that a couple of years back, and I've seen a huge difference. My principal just ticking down, right there. I'm paying the same amount. I'm just doing it every 2 weeks instead of every month. It changes nothing in my life at that point. Tiffany, let me ask you, how can people get in touch with you if they want a loan, which hopefully after they see this, they're going to be like, we want to deal with HomeKey Mortgage and Tiffany. How would they find you? You have a website, you have Facebook, you have any of these sorts of things that people can look you up?
Pretty much just Google my name and it'll pop up multiple pages.
Google Tiffany Sicard and
or you can call 225-341-0660 is my cell, or you can call office line, also rings to my cell, 1-985-345-6686, and I can help you, or any one of my team members can help you. When we were building my team, again, I made sure to put people around me that shared the same work ethic to me, and where a lot of companies during this COVID have been closing their doors and losing employees, we've actually gained employees. And I have we've expanded recently. I have 2 loan officers. I have Alicia White. I have Jason Furlong, and I recently hired an in-house processor, Miss Mickey Young. And we're just one team with the same plan of making sure that every home buyer is as educated as possible, and that they feel like they are getting, or they know, not just feel like it, but they know that they are getting the best deal possible for them, as well as my agents and realtors and people in my community that I deal with, just knowing that I'm doing right by their clients.
Fantastic.
Our referrals.
Well, thank you for sitting down and talking to me today. I enjoyed it. You're definitely a leader. You're a community-minded person, and I appreciate you sitting down and telling a little bit about your business. Of course, I recommend people go see you for all their home lending needs. I would like to thank the master of the op-ed himself, McHugh David. If you hadn't checked out his op-eds in the paper, check them out. They're pretty good. For engineering this podcast, this local leader podcast, the always awesome Tiffany Sicard for being my guest, the Livingston Parish News for the space, and all you viewers and listeners for your support. Please follow me on Instagram, like me on Facebook, subscribe to me on YouTube, and check out the website at paintpodcast.com. It sure helps me out. If you're interested in sponsoring Local Leaders, the podcast, or appearing on the podcast, please reach out to me by emailing Jim at paintpodcast.com. Until next time, I'm Jim Chapman reminding you to love your community, support local business, and keep leading. Thanks. Do you need cash? Do you want to consolidate debt? Premier Credit can help. They provide quick and confidential loans for any reason. Their service is same day, and most loans are approved within minutes. You can apply in person or by the phone. Their experienced and knowledgeable loan professionals will leave you feeling confident that your loan is being properly handled in a secure manner. Premier Credit can be reached at 225-667-8100, or you can email WeSayYes@premiercredit.com, or stop by and spin the wheel at 139 Del Norte Avenue in Denham Springs. They're open Monday through Friday from 8:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. and are a proud sponsor of Local Leaders, the podcast. If you're in the market to purchase a home or sell your home, then Tricia Johnston of Ladder and Bloom Realty can assist. With over a decade of experience in the area, Tricia's vast knowledge of real estate makes her the perfect realtor to represent you. For more information, Tricia can be reached at area code 225-754-2000 or via her website at triciajohnston.com. Tricia Johnston, building a strong foundation of trust, one home at a time. James Adam McCants, it has been a while since you and I have sat down.
With microphones in between us, yes.
That's correct.
Yes.
Otherwise, it'd be yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it has been a while since we've recorded our conversations. That may be good or bad. I don't know. But so how's life in SportNCenter world, the promo business? How's things going over there?
You know, for living in a time with very limited, if no football, and very limited, if no events, we're actually doing okay, man. I can't complain about anything. I know it could be a lot worse. As I say all the time, better than I deserve, for sure.
That's right. That's right. And, you know, football, it's coming back. I don't know if there's a firm date on when they're starting. I know at one point it was like the 16th or something was going to be the first game. Then they talked about the 9th was a possibility. But the good thing is it's coming back.
Absolutely.
And for folks like SportNCenter, you know, you rely on these sports, these year-round sports to come around. They help your business. And definitely not the only thing you do.
Yep.
You do promotional goods for businesses all over Livingston Parish and other areas. But it's a big part of it. And so y'all have done well adjusting from someone that buys a ton of promotional stuff from you, and I see it every day.
You can speak from experience. That's right.
I can speak from experience. So things have been going crazy. I was telling you before the show, we're not necessarily going to talk all about business today. You know, there's a lot of things going on just in the world in general, especially here in the South. We just had a hurricane hit.
Technically, 2.5. Really?
Yeah, that's true. Since last time we talked, we had 2 of them hit and a half. And so fortunate that one that just hit the Mobile area did not go where they thought it was going to go.
Definitely.
Let me tell you, I was talking to my wife about this the other day. there is absolutely no way we could have handled that type of storm here, at least here in Livingston Parish, from a water standpoint. I believe we would have been in it. Yeah. So our hearts go out to those people. We definitely know how it is. Of course, in 2016, when the one hit here, it wasn't a tropical, system. It was just a land storm that never moved.
Sure.
And so we definitely, our hearts go out to them. People in Lake Charles, they're still obviously rebuilding. They got a long road to hoe.
Yeah. I actually saw a post from a friend of mine who's out in that area just a little while ago and said after 21 days, they finally have electricity where he's at. So it looks like things are at least getting better and closer to being on the mend. But I know from what I've been hearing, it's unimaginable amounts of devastation in that area. Now, granted, it wasn't the huge storm surges that they were really afraid of, but the wind, talking miles and miles north off the coast, is just pure devastation. It's horrible. I hate to hear about it.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And, talking about that you're right. It wasn't the storm surge, which what they were predicting was just insane. I think it was 20 something feet of storm surge or some crazy number. And for those people that may not be quite familiar with what storm surge is, it's just the raise in the water level so many feet. So it doesn't sound like, well, it does sound like a lot when you say 20 feet, but even a 5-foot storm surge, imagine the water level raising 5 feet and then coming in. That's huge. That's a lot. When they talk about storm surge in Lake Maurepas being 3 to 5 feet, some people's thought are that's not that big a deal. 35 feet, they think of a pool and they're standing in a pool. It's 3 feet deep. Right. That's not that bad. No, that's the raise in the normal water level, and then it's going in. So it's pushing an additional 3 to 5 feet of water wall into Lake Maurepas, which then drains out into all these other areas. And that's what causes, flooding in that area. And if it's a really high storm surge, can create problems even further down the Amy River. So, yeah, that was a nightmare. I've had some people go down there. I know recently, the Chamber of Commerce, the Livingston Young Professionals, I know Marissa Hofstetter played a big key in that, but they went and brought a bunch of stuff, goods and things like that these folks really desperately need. Sure. So, for those of you listeners out there that may be listening, if you want to help and you want to donate, just reach out. There's a lot of people doing this locally. When we had what we went through, I think a lot of people are looking at this as this is our opportunity to kind of give back.
That's right. And it's not going to take very much research to find someone that you can piggyback along with to help contribute to, may it be efforts or, items or whatever it is, because just like you said, there's so many churches and entities and nonprofits that are in this area that are ready and willing to give back because of the inundation of support and love and grace and everything that we received back from 2016. So it wouldn't take a whole heck of a lot to find somebody to latch your wagon onto to help out with whatever you're doing.
Yeah, no doubt. And churches, you bring up a good point. Churches, a lot of those are very active with this. And I was glad to hear what you just said about the electricity. Look, it doesn't seem like that major a thing, but that's a huge step in the right direction just to get lights on. Imagine if you have a house, you have no electricity, you have, it's demolished for all intents and purposes. When you get that electricity, that's like, in your mind, that's like 50% of the battle.
Oh, absolutely.
I remember when I gutted my house, it was down to sticks and I got my sheetrock up. Now I had a million things I had to do from there. But when I had the sheetrock up, it was like I was 50% there. I felt like in my mind. So positive thoughts go a long way towards healing. And so something just as simple as the lights being turned back on to someone I would imagine makes all the difference in the world.
Well, you got to think there's two sides to that as well. First of all, the comfort factor that they can actually turn their air conditioners back on, which we all too often take it, for granted, having air conditioning in South Louisiana, but to have that on. But then also the other side of that coin is, productivity level is going to skyrocket because you're not running off of generators anymore. could actually plug things in and run more than a couple of tools at a time. And I mean, it's just a great thing. I'm really happy to hear it. And I'm hoping that, it wasn't just an isolated area of Lake Charles that's gotten it back, that hopefully it's widespread and they, get more electricity to as many people as possible to really start making progress to getting back to normal.
Yeah, I agree. And it was interesting. Last week, I was actually going over one of our bridges here in Livingston Parish, and the interstate runs underneath. And I saw, it caught my attention because it was probably 20 the electrical vehicles with the ladders on the back.
The bucket trucks.
And it was going down the road, and they had 4 or 5 of them in a row. They had American flags, just blowing, and they were going east. They were going towards Mobile. Sure. And so right now, for whatever reason, I was thinking about this morning, our electrical folks, the people that work for Energy and Demco and all that, they're stretched pretty thin right now, because now you're kind of trying to help people in 2 different places. And even if you don't service that area typically, I'm sure these electrical conglomerates get together and they're like, man, do you have some people you can spare and send my way? And I'm sure everybody knows that one day they may need that favor repaid. Sure. So they're sending, people to wherever they're needed. That being said, obviously us as people, we need to be patient with these electrical companies as they work through this. Yeah. I would imagine that's like a 500% raise in your workload just right off the bat, if not more.
Absolutely.
We got that going on there, and then we had Mobile area get hit with this. That's kind of where the eye went over, is that particular area. But with this storm that just passed, and they dealt with a lot of water, kind of different. Their wind wasn't necessarily as bad, but the water got them, and 24 inches. The last time I looked, and McHugh probably knows the exact number, but the last time I looked, which was right when the eye had kind of passed over, they had already gotten 24 inches of rain in 6 hours. 6 hours. That's mind-boggling. Yeah.
The crazy thing about it, I've got some friends in that area and some work associates in that area as well. And throughout spring and summer, it's basically drought conditions over there because haven't been getting a lot of rain, and they just pray. And I'm sure that this is not how they wanted to receive irrigation. Yeah. But, right. It's crazy how that works, and here it is, 2 storms within 2 weeks. You've got one that is primarily wind driven. There was obviously some rain that was in there, but sure, primarily wind driven. You got another one, just a few miles down the coastline that winds really weren't that bad, but the amount of water that was dropped, it's just crazy. I mean, what year would you expect anything different?
Yeah.
than 2020?
And I mean, here we are, we're in South Louisiana. I mean, we're used to dealing with hurricanes. It blows other people's minds, but to us, it's almost like you go to the grocery store the day before, you buy some water, you buy some gasoline, and of course they advise you plan well ahead of that. But when you're used to these things, it's a little different. I don't remember, and they've had years where they've had several bad storms, but to have this much of an impact this close together, wow. I mean, it just blows my mind. And then I start thinking about the governmental side of it, and I'm like, man, FEMA's going to bankrupt. I mean, you think about all that money. I mean, these people are going to need help, just like we did, and so this is something that goes well beyond just a storm and a one person's thing. This is a federal issue now, and these storms just seem to keep getting more common. It seems like now. It used to be, James, when we were growing up, it seemed like you had one bad storm every 5 years. All the other ones were 75-mile-an-hour ones with a little bit of rain. You dealt with it for a few days. But a major, Katrina, you didn't see those every single year, hitting close to home. Now it seems like they're getting a little more close together. So I don't know what to think about that,
It kind of seems to really go in cycles, though, if you think about it, because in the mid-90s, you had Andrew and a couple other storms that were right around in that time, and then everything laid low until early 2000s when Lily hit, and then right after that, a couple of years was the year with Katrina and Rita that were similar in the fact that, back to back, in essence, storms, major storms at that. And then, we had Ike in 2008 or something like that. And then it kind of laid low for a little while. It really kind of seems to be cyclical, but that's just me and my limited knowledge of meteorology and what.
Yeah, we are far from meteorologists, if you did not know that already. But we definitely have opinions. And, speaking of Katrina, one of the things with Katrina was a storm that was, you hate to use the term beautiful for a hurricane, but from a perspective of what you would picture the ultimate, just awesome hurricane, that would be it. It was a buzzsaw, huge and just tight as a snare drum running through there. And
perfect storm, really, as far as hurricanes.
Absolutely. And those they used to seem like they were rare issues, and then now they come closer and closer to go. Some people say it's climate change, and we're all doomed. And I don't know. I mean, I don't have an opinion on any of that. I say work on the environment the best you can, and that's, if we all do that, maybe everything will get better. But I'm far from a scientist, and all this climate change stuff I don't even get into. But aside from that, those folks are obviously dealing with a lot now, and so if you still have some goods and you want to send some that way, I'm sure you can also do that as well. And we want to help everybody we can there. I just hope that's it. I hope that now we get into wintertime. It felt good today.
Yeah, it felt wonderful this morning coming outside, for sure.
Yeah, it felt really nice. Supposed to be like that the next couple of days, and I don't think there's rain in the forecast for like 5 days, so that'll be a good thing. And maybe we won't, once those Gulf waters cool off a little bit,
won't have quite the concern that if something just does stumble into the Gulf, that hopefully it'll dissipate and go away, for sure.
Triton Healthcare, located at 8128 Florida Boulevard in Denham Springs, offers a wide range of physical therapy services for a number of chronic and acute ailments. Whether it's sports injuries, injuries from accidents, or neurological disorders, Triton Healthcare can take care of it. They offer post-surgery rehab services, which is a specialized sports medicine program, and massage, as well as occupational and speech language therapies. So check out Triton Healthcare, who has been an active part of the Livingston Parish community since 1999 and are dedicated to providing the very best and rehabilitative care to all Livingston Parish residents. They can be reached at 225-791-8666, and they are a proud sponsor of Local Leaders, the podcast. That's right. And where else would you figure two kind of salesmen here would know so much about meteorology? It goes to show you never know where you'll find that information.
One of the many services I offer.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Whether you need a logo or you need weather information, James Adam McCants is your man at SportNCenter. There's no doubt about it. So what else is going on? We do want to say our hearts go out to, we're praying for Remy Hidalgo.
Absolutely.
Denham Springs High School football player, tall, scrappy kid that had some heat issues, and I don't know the correct term, so we'll say fell out at practice and had to be hospitalized. So we are thinking of and praying for that local kid at Denham Springs High School.
How about that candlelight visual they had last night at the field? Is that not amazing? I mean, it wasn't just Denham Springs kids that were there either. It was kids from what I'm understanding, Live Oak, kids from Walker, all got together, showing the unity that we can have as a community, especially when it comes to something like that. What happened to that poor kid is horrible, and I don't think they've really come to a pure diagnosis yet of exactly what happened. But for him to be affected like that, and to go down at practice like that, and then from what I'm understanding, he's almost like in like a medically induced coma right now with some kind of treatment in New Orleans. And for everybody to come together and put the mascots aside and put the division of schools aside and realize, that kid, it could have been anybody. You're not talking about some unhealthy, kid that got locked out the house and, suffered from some heat stroke. This is a guy that's in pretty physical peak condition, and that's just great that everybody came together like that to show support as a community. That really resonated with me, to say the least, when I saw that this morning.
Indeed, and me as well. Livingston Parish News did a great job covering that story, and that's where I read it at.
Same here.
But, I agree with you, and I think, James, that a lot of that is the fact that we're a community. And Livingston Parish folks, we all are, and we have our battles with each other and stuff like that from time to time, but that's with each other. But when we need to kind of stand together and for whatever it is, whether it's support someone who's in the hospital and you're praying for, or whether it's a flood and you're all getting together because we're all we've got, that's one thing about Livingston Parish we've kind of always done, and that's something to be proud of. And so yes, an absolutely beautiful thing. And like you say, these are schools. It's not just Denham High folks that were there. Right. It was parish schools, and probably some from East Baton Rouge Parish.
If I had to guess, it probably wasn't exclusive to Livingston Parish schools alone.
Yeah,
Central was there. That's
Central's another one.
Yeah,
and
Zachary.
Yeah. Yeah,
that's
you can talk loud. McCants here, everybody. But yeah, so he just told us Zachary and Central, both people from there, also showed their support. Wow, man, that's awesome.
Fantastic.
And Remy's mom just posted, and we're trying to get it circulated on our social media as well. They need B negative or AB negative blood.
B negative or AB negative blood is needed in donations for Remy Hidalgo. So
right, and I know this probably won't be coming out until tomorrow, which would be Friday, but they're going to.
Well, we're going to push it out today. If we need to get some donations out there, we want to make sure that people know that. So what we're going to do is at the end of this podcast, I'll make sure this goes out today, and I will notate at the top. I'll make mention of Remy and make mention of that to where people will see it and they'll know that it's current. So yeah, praying for him and we wish him nothing but the best. So,
absolutely.
Moving on to the next subject. SportNCenter's got some things going on, and we're going to get into that a little bit. But last time we talked about the great stuff y'all do with logos and we talked about how important it is for businesses, especially small businesses and local family-owned companies, to get their name out there via promotional goods. And look, I am the king of anything promotional good-wise, and if you don't believe me, ask James. I love to put my name on anything, and James loves it that I love it.
Absolutely.
So I thought I knew it all about promotional goods, and I walked in his store, and I see him a lot over there, and he says, "Man, you won't believe the machine we're about to get in. You're going to have to get 9 more jobs to pay for all the stuff you're going to want." And
no, you're going to make so much money off of the promotional products by blasting your message out there. You're not going to need another job. You're going to have to retire semi.
That's right. So I was intrigued, as I often get. And so he got his machine in, and I'm going to let him kind of explain to everybody what that is. But we're going to show you also some items and some capabilities that this machine has, which is almost limitless. It's almost your imagination.
It really is. It's limited by the time that we want to research into the materials that we mark and engrave on, as well as really more than anything limited by the creativity that we have.
Yeah. So tell us about it. Tell us how you got interested in even purchasing the machine, where you saw a need for it, and what it can do.
Well, it is actually a laser engraver, and it is a CO2. There's two different types of laser engravers. There's a CO2 laser engraver and there's a fiber laser engraver. Now, going into the science of explaining the difference between the two, I'm not going to do, but basically, simply stating, a CO2 is more for marking and cutting organic materials, whereas a fiber laser is more of marking and cutting metals. So we actually there are processes where we can mark on metal, usually coated metals, where we're actually erasing the coating off of areas to release the image. And there's also a couple of different products that we can add to bare metals that, through the chemical reaction of the materials and the process of the laser going through it, marks the metal. It doesn't actually dig into or engrave into the metal, but it marks on top of it, creating a chemical bond that, again, shows the image. We have the CO2, and just like Jeremy that you had on the podcast here recently, last week.
Yeah, last week.
He has a fiber laser, because what he's doing is more along the lines of metal for guns and things like that, and jewelry. We took a different approach because, first of all, we're 2 blocks away, and by no means do we want to start any kind of, war or anything like that, but on
a laser war.
A laser war. Wow. How you like that, huh? But also, our needs are a little bit different, where the majority of the things that we sell are of organic nature, like paper, materials like clothing materials, things like that. So it actually has worked out really well, because where one of our strengths, if someone brings something into our shop and it's not something we can do, then we have an automatic referral to send them around the corner to Jeremy, and he reciprocates with that as well. Of course, we've had a great relationship with him.
Yeah, y'all work together.
Absolutely. We work together very well. I've known Jeremy for a long time, and he's a great guy. But the things that our industry is much more on the organic side. You're talking cloth materials, you're talking paper, wood, things like that. So it made sense for us to go with the CO2. I saw the first machine actually in action, so to speak, at a trade show in Dallas about 5-6 years ago. And of the 400 something booths that were in there, I probably spent more time at that booth just watching and kind of absorbing what all could be possible with us if we had one of those machines. And it wasn't just that I was gravitated towards that booth. Actually, about 2 or 3 years earlier, we had an ad placed through a local company that generated its own number. So when someone was looking up a particular, where to buy footballs local, where to buy this local, our name would come up and it would be through that numbers. So that way they could gather some data as far as what was working. Sure. And the number one thing that was searched for was laser engraving of personal items, because apparently at that time there really wasn't anybody around here who had a laser engraver. So that kind of always rattled around in my head as far as maybe that would be the next thing that we would enhance our production there at SportNCenter. Because, we already do in-house screen printing. We do in-house monogramming. We have a sign shop where we do various like banners, corrugated signs, decals, all kind of stuff. Well, that kind of seemed to me like that would be the next step in adding a production type to our arsenal, if you will, at SportNCenter. Excuse me. So fast forward a couple of years, we really kind of start looking at it and really start making some serious, not necessarily serious decisions, but start gathering some serious questions as far as, okay, what are we looking for? What do we need? So we found this machine. Took us about 6 months, 8 months to pull the trigger on it. We decided we were going to purchase it, make it our last big purchase for 2019. Well, it was about 6 to 8 weeks out, because as you order the machine, they manufacture it. Well, we ordered it. They started the production on it the first week of January. Ended up, there was a couple of pieces that were back ordered. They were waiting to come in, that delayed it about 3-4 weeks. And sure enough, before you know it, it was lockdown time. So we should have had our machine in mid-February, but it wasn't slated to ship until mid-March, and we all know what happened there.
Right.
So where it ships from in Michigan, they actually went into the lockdown phase, the quarantine, or whatever you want to consider it, about a week or two before we did.
Yeah.
So here we are. This would have been actually the absolutely perfect time to have a new piece of equipment in and learn how to use it when basically everything was shut down and we couldn't get it. So
that would have been too lucky, James. I mean, that would have been just too easy and too perfect for, at least for my experience when I go through things. It's Murphy's Law with that stuff. And now I would imagine you had some call for this stuff over the years that kind of planted that seed where you were like, man, we really need to get something in-house, because that's one thing I want to push. And if hopefully everybody that's watching this podcast is quite familiar with it. And at the end of every episode, I hold up the cup that SportNCenter is nice enough to donate to our, whoever we have on the show, that guest. And I show that it has the beautiful Local Leaders logo. That's right. And that machine is actually what makes that cup logo. It cuts it in there, and I've seen this done. And it's not like the end of this pin to where it's jabbing it or whatever. There's a word for that and I can't think of it, but it's an actual laser. It's heating up and literally cutting that design. So it's very interesting to watch as well. Stephanie Berthelot and the crew at SR Enterprise can handle it all, from sheetrock to texture to paint. Give Stephanie a call at 504-432-9284. SR Enterprise, where they spread the paint and you spread the word. But there had to be, I would imagine, a lot of cases where people were coming in wanting this kind of done in-house, or they were just requesting things that once you maybe priced it after in the aftermarket world, it may, I don't know if there's a price competition problem there when you get into having to buy it and resell it versus bringing it in and making it convenient, or is it just a speed factor?
Well, I would have to say probably the component that drove us more to get the machine than anything else is minimum order quantities. You can order. There's 1,000 different distributors that I can order pieces from, say like for a realtor that wants to do a leatherette wine caddy. Well, that's great, and you can get them for a really good price, except for most of the companies that you order these things from, the minimum order quantity is like 50 or 150. Now, you'd have to be a realtor on fire to run through 150 wine totes within any reasonable amount of time. We can do these one at a time. That's the beauty of it. And it also helps them to kind of say, for example, realtors or anyone who has rather large sales where they don't happen necessarily all too quick, frequency is one a week, 3 a month, whatever. You can diversify what you're giving them. So if you know this client, you've worked with them, and you kind of have an idea of what their tastes are. Maybe they're not into wine. Maybe they are a liquor drinker. Maybe they don't drink at all. Maybe they love to cook. We've got a catalog that you can go through, and there's various different things that they can pick out that they can get specifically for a person that is going to fit their likes or their tastes. Slap the logo on it. There's nothing better than a promotional project that has function. There's nothing better than giving something to someone that they're going to use. And that's the name of the game, is you want that product being used. You want that product being appreciated. You want that product being shown. Look what I got. Look at this beautiful Louisiana shaped, cutting board or whatever. And then what's the first thing they're going to look at? Boom, your logo right there.
I agree 100%. And that's, in the promotional industry. And if you're a business owner and you're wanting to promote yourself, the absolute worst thing you can do is get a common thing that people are going to throw in the trash, and because they're basically throwing however much it costs you to make that in the trash. Right. So uniqueness goes a long way. People remember unique promotional gifts. So in that respect, that's really what you give them, is the ability to get as unique as they want and still put their logo on something. Now, what if someone has something already and they're curious if you can put their logo on it? Do you offer that service?
Well, I tell you, we've been engraving now, I'd say, since the middle of May, because there was definitely a learning curve as far as learning the machine and learn how it operates and so on and so forth. And I'd have to say probably about 25 to 30% of the items that we have done have been items that have been brought to us. We're getting quicker at turning items away that we're not really sure how it will turn out, because I'd rather tell somebody no than have to call them and say, so I totally jacked up this thing of yours. Is there another way that we can buy it? Is there a way that we can buy you another one, or, so on and so forth. So we're really kind of limiting, or working on limiting, the things that are brought into the things that we're 100% confident in. The laser is going to produce a quality finished product. But there are a lot of people bring things in, and it really gets scary there too, because a lot of things they bring in are of sentimental value more than dollar value, right? Which, I would hate to mess up something that, and we have gone into it before and let them know, hey, look, we're at the end of the day, we're talking about a machine that's in the back. Now, if I misspell your name, that's my fault. But if this joker goes jagged on us and something happens that's completely beyond our control, you have to realize that going in. And no one has turned it down yet. So.
Right. And that's probably not a hugely common thing. I mean, 9 times out of 10, you're going to get it right. But you're right. I mean, if it's something sentimental going in, people that have sentimental items just know that, talk to James, talk to the people over there, and I'm sure they can tell you kind of the percentage of it going the way you want it to go.
Hey, that's not exclusive to just that form of production either. We have the same issue from time to time with the embroidery machine. Somebody brings in a jacket of their own, or brings in a baby blanket or something and wants something embroidered. 9 times out of 10, maybe even 95 times out of 100, no issues whatsoever. But there's still you're still dealing with a machine.
Sure. That's right. So that's why you get a warranty on a new car.
That's right.
I bought a car one time. The guy was pushing that warranty. Now I knew, those warranties where they make their money sometimes. And I'm like, man, this is a brand new car. What is it? A junky car? You're trying to push me on this warranty? He said, hey man, it's a machine. They break. And it's a good point. So, I mean, things happen, in other words, but
you didn't spring for the underspray too.
Yeah, no, I did not get but I have a great story I'll tell one day about that. It's funny. We'll save that for another time. So you brought some things with you, and these are some really cool things that y'all use as, I guess, examples to show people, just kind of spark your imagination a little bit. But before we get to that, just kind of tell me, so I know you can do wood. I know you can do metal. Kind of go through the majority of things that you can do with that. Or maybe it'd be easier to say what you can't do. Is there anything you cannot do with it?
We can't mark directly into metal.
Okay.
We can, like I was saying, there are products that you can spray on it that you can mark on the metal, and it creates a chemical bond. So it's not just like painting on top of it. It's you wouldn't really know the difference if it didn't tell you, truth be told.
Sure.
Now, with that being said, we've learned from experience, we can also not engrave on chrome Zippo lighters. So, I mean, it's not exclusive to Zippo themselves, but polished chrome, not even the additive or the product that we use to spray, will do anything. We did one, I guess it was about 2-3 weeks ago, and it was beautiful. And I'm, getting all the fingerprints off and everything, and along with the fingerprint went the image. I'm like, what the? And I mean, it was just shiny as can be. Yeah. So the the machine that we bought it from, they have a great support system or a great support staff, and they also have a very active Facebook community that we're members of the group. So I posted on the Facebook page, oh, does anybody know what's going on? They're like, nope, dude, can't do polished chrome. There is nothing that you can spray on there to do polished chrome. So that's two of the things right there. One thing that's really great about our machine, and this is why we actually chose the machine that we went with, they have a patent on open architecture. So there is no true bottom. So even though the engraving bed that we have is 12 inches by 18 inches, and the machine is, naturally 6-8 inches deep, you can move the work table from away from the engraver, and anything that you can put the laser on, you can either put it underneath the laser, or you can actually pick up the laser and do on-site engraving. And
wow.
So it doesn't, there are other engravers out there, in fact, the majority of them, where not only are you limited to the size of the engraving bed, but also the depth of the engraving bed, which is really cool because we've done some things that were way oversized. It should never fit inside the machine, but being open architecture like that, we were able to slide it underneath and do the engraving that we were doing.
So tons of options there, and that's a great thing. So you did bring some things. We'll get to those now. So show me some of the awesomeness you got over.
This is one that we have, all of us at sales staff at SportNCenter have one of these sitting on their desk. It's a business card holder.
I like this.
Yeah.
I'm gonna hold it while you talk about it.
That's a leatherette item, which it comes in about 12, 14 different colors, actually. So that's a wonderful job there, Van. I mean, Jim. Actually, it's more like a QVC. You just gotta keep smiling. Oh yes, yes.
Oh, this is lovely. Just feel the texture.
Yeah. So there's anything from your traditional, like that's a dark leather right there, or there's a rawhide, which like this wallet right here is a rawhide color, to non-traditionals like aqua and navy and black, and it's really cool. But that's a nice little wallet there.
Yeah, that's great gift idea for some corporations that want to give out corporate gifts, even to your employees or
family
to your
members,
good customers, family members. Yeah, that'd be a great thing.
Father's Day, graduations. You can get the trifold wallets, bifold wallets, checkbooks, which is a great graduation gift. That's typically whenever someone's graduating high school, that's when they're really kind of kicking off their adult life. So if they don't already have a checking account, I'm sure that's something that's going to be coming right behind. But it's just, it's kind of indicative of that age,
Very good point. Graduation, coming up. I mean, it seemed it's still a little bit off, but with COVID, I mean, we kind of lose track of time.
Indeed we have. And Christmas. I mean, come on. Yeah, Christmas present. That's another thing. I hear all the time, and I say it myself, just like my dad, hardest person on earth to buy for, because he's got just about everything he wants, and all of a sudden when he finds out something new he wants, he goes and buys it before I know anything about it.
Sure.
Everybody has those people in their life, You're able to really give a unique, customizable gift to someone and not have to worry about, do they already have one of these? There's probably... It's a really good chance they don't have whatever it is that you're picking from.
Right.
Here's a nice little leatherette wrapped flask.
I'm more of a whiskey man.
Yeah, a little homage to Ron Swanson there.
There you go.
I knew McHugh would like that one. Yeah, this is a pretty awesome, and wouldn't recommend that for graduation from high school.
Probably not.
Maybe college though. That'd be a good, LSU limited capacity, but they are going to have some football games this year, and
we are by no means endorsing sneaking alcohol into Tiger Stadium.
That's right. But if you've done that sort of thing,
and the thing about it is perceived value when it comes down to this stuff, because you look at this and you think, oh wow, this flask, you probably think $60-$80 you would pay for something like this. Not even close.
$69.90.
$58.95. If you act now, it's about half that price. I mean, I don't have the price list in front of me, but if memory serves me correct, I think this Joker's like $24.
Can't beat it.
You really can't.
Cannot beat it. And that's personalized for that price. So you're not buying the flask and then having to personalize. He can get you a flat, $24-25. It's in your hands. What a great gift, inexpensive, and makes for great stocking stuffers, college graduation gifts. There's all kinds of things you can do with that. What else you got there? Now this is cool.
This pulls at a whole different thread as far as a market or a group to market towards is wedding parties. Now we have actually done really well with these. You've got the wedding day preparation stuff, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a lot more obviously with the bridesmaids and the bridal crew than the groomsmen. But when you're talking bridesmaids, it's gotten to where now you give them all shirts, oversized full button shirts with their name or their initials embroidered on them so they can wear while they're getting their hair done and getting their makeup done. And, a handful of other things. Well, what better way to hand them their shirt than something to commemorate the occasion of the wedding date, which really nice wooden hangers. Put any kind of image you want onto there, any kind of text, whatever the message may be.
Initials, maybe.
That's right. And this is also a great item for. We have a lot of higher scale clients that order nicer shirts,
like me,
like you, Jeff. So if I'm going to do a presentation, I can get a half dozen of these, and I can put their company logo on this when I'm going to hand them samples. Just like people love to see their name on stuff. I mean, they're automatically in a better mood when they see their logo hanging on this sample shirt, and it's it's all about.
Leanne's Flooring by Design, conveniently located on Florida Boulevard in Denham Springs. Leanne can service all of your flooring needs. Give them a call for an appointment at 523-7004. At Leanne's Flooring by Design, they stand behind everything you walk on.
Sizzle. Really.
I'll give you even another idea for this and for the listeners out there. If you own like a boutique.
Absolutely.
Man, you just got your own fancy hangers here at your boutique. And I know there's some in the Antique Village. You need to get in touch with your Antique Village neighbor, SportNCenter, and he can hook it up to where you have your own personalized hangers. And so any boutiques, places like that, also a great idea. But awesome for weddings too. I wouldn't have thought about that till you said it, but great deal.
Got some other office items that are really nice.
My favorite. Personally, that's right. Local leaders, mouse pad there. Nobody throws away mouse pads. I don't even hardly use a mouse pad. I use the
little square on your laptop.
Thank you. Sure. Yep. That's what I use. But I'll tell you what, I've got one in my drawer that I've probably had in there for 3 years. I don't throw it away. Nobody throws these away. And every time I open it up, it is not personalized. It's just blue. So, but really cool, great gift. What do these run typically? And I'm putting you on the spot.
$15, I want to say.
Yeah, there you go. $15. And
it's got the nice little ergonomic pad right there on it. I mean, you're not
carpal tunnel, go away.
Go away. That's right. All out of here.
No carpal tunnel. We don't want that. Yeah.
And some other great little items, little keychain here. That's
cool.
Engravable. And
is that you in 1990?
That is not. That is an artist rendering of Kurt Cobain. But yeah,
that was going to be my second guess. Yeah, awesome keychain though, and that's something I do want to. Hopefully, I can get all this working. But and I'm going to take pictures of all these before I leave, and I'm going to put them to where they just pop up. I just remembered I could do that. So, but that's an awesome keychain idea. Also a bottle opener.
Yeah.
So you don't have to just do words. You can do images, obviously, like you did with my logo, and you did with Kurt Cobain as well. So that's cool.
It's got a couple more things I want to show you here real quick. Yeah. This falls in line with the kitchenware. It's just a little a sample cutting board, which I guess you could use that for, like maybe a cheese tray or something something like that. And they come in various sizes. That's actually bamboo, which that's a huge eco push, is using bamboo as opposed to your other hardwoods. But it really nice item. Comes in various sizes, comes in various shapes. You can actually get state shapes, and great for anybody who maybe likes to entertain or enjoys cooking or both. Absolutely.
That's right. I like doing both. Yeah. So this is a great, and remember, don't get locked in it. This is awesome, but he can do LSU. He can do SportNCenter. He can do local leaders.
Logos.
Whatever you want.
They make great wedding gifts. They make great anniversary gifts. You can put the couple's name, the date of union, so on and so forth. Again, it goes to just when you want to stop thinking about it, that's when it stops, because creativity and
imagination,
off the wall.
basically.
Yeah, imagination.
Whatever you can imagine.
And here we are with that wine tote deal. I've had multiple people reach out to me and want to get something like that, but it didn't go for it because they didn't need 150 of them. They needed 4, And now, granted, you're not going to get them at that 150 piece price, but it's still a fraction of what you would pay for the grand total, considering you only need 4.
Yeah, or 4 in this case. Yeah, you don't want to buy 150. It would take you forever. Unless you're Trisha Johnston, I hear you can sell pretty fast. But these are really neat, unique items that almost anybody, anybody can give away and take. So it's got a little deal scribed on the front of it there. And now I do have a question about these. What if I had if it was a gift to my, I don't know, James, I can't give you a scenario, but if I had a picture and I said, can you, kind of like you did there with Kurt Cobain, can you put this image onto this? Would that be possible or not?
Absolutely. That is one of the last steps as far as learning the functionality of the laser engraver, is us working out all the tweaks as far as being able to laser engrave a picture or a picture image. We have had, to some degrees, varying degrees of success, been able to do it. We took Tiffany that works at the store. Oh, yeah. We took a picture of hers from their wedding date and were able to put it on a slab of wood, and it looks really great. Consistency still isn't there as far as different jobs that we've tried just yet, sure, but we're working on it. And now that we're back to school is over and football season is starting to, even though it hasn't really wound up as far as playing games goes, it's getting close to where we're pretty much done with our portion of it. We'll have some more time, and we're really going to dedicate it because we really want to step into October being the mark of the fourth quarter, knowing how to do it, because that's going to be something else that I think we're going to be really successful with.
I agree. And what a better place to promote it than right here on Local Leaders, the podcast. I mean, I can't think of a better springboard for your launch. But that being said, now what about glass? Can you do picture glass awards? You can.
Yes, sir. I've got a project going right now where I'm doing it's acrylic, not glass. Yeah,
same thing. Yeah, you never know.
We're doing some engraving on acrylic. We also have the capabilities of cutting acrylic, which is another really cool thing. Yeah, that's pretty amazing. I'm working with a good friend of mine that owns a lighting company that's getting me some LED lights to where we'll be able to do lit edge acrylic, which is something that's really cool. So,
is it a local lighting company?
Absolutely, it is. Okay. Right here in Denham Springs. One might say so close you could reach out and touch it.
And yes, you can. So fantastic. Yeah, because that, and that's really where it's at right now, is a lot of these acrylic signs are being backlit, and it really sets that sign apart. Even on the interior, I really like them on the interior. So you have the acrylic sign, it's hanging up. It says Local Leaders of the Podcast. I can picture it already. It's got, my company colors going on this side and this side, and it just lights up, and you walk in the room and boom, there it is. It makes an impression. The interesting thing about acrylic is it does look like glass. Yep. And it really gives it classes up the whatever it is you're doing. So the fact that you can cut it to shape and the fact that you can engrave on it makes that very appealing to a lot of people around here. So there's a lot of businesses here that they're not used to kind of having this service locally. They're having to either go online and get something custom made there. Then when you get it in, it's sometimes it's what you wanted. Sometimes it's nothing like what you thought it would be. You can go up to SportNCenter and see anybody up there, including you, and you can see these examples we showed you, plus many more up there. But you can also have a little meeting with them and discuss what's possible, especially for these bigger companies that give out, major amounts of corporate gifts at the end of the year, or maybe during the year, or, customer gifts, that sort of thing. So really awesome. And I want to put kind of like the explanation point on this by saying this is a hard service to find really anywhere around here, much less locally. You kind of have the best of both worlds. You're buying local, you're keeping your money here in Livingston Parish, but in addition to all of that, you actually have something you can look at, see, touch, feel before you kind of pull the trigger and get it. And to me, that makes all the difference in the world. I love it that you're only limited to kind of what your imagination can come up with on these items. Very, very excited that you got this machine. I see nothing but good things. How's it been going so far? Is it, considering the fact that you haven't maybe promoted it hard yet, how's it been?
This is actually, speaking of springboards, this is the springboard into us marketing the fact that we've got it. Everything has really been word of mouth, B&I, using it as my sales manager moment, knowing friends of mine who would be interested in something like this, reaching out to them, and then people just walking in off the street. But this is the first time that we've really marketed it outside of word of mouth or referral. Next we're planning on taking out an ad in the Livingston Parish News. We're going to be putting some things in there between the obits because of the what they call the memorial factor. Mm-hmm. There's so many different things that we can do to anything from miniature urns to plaques and plates that you can do around the house. We're going to kind of toggle it back and forth between the obits and then just the meat of the paper, targeting other groups and other demographics other than just memorial. So this is the first mass marketing of it, and we're hoping to really kind of gain some traction for, like I said, the fourth quarter. You got a lot of things going on. You've got Thanksgiving, you've got Christmas, you've got budgets wrapping up for the year for businesses. We just see it as an opportunity to really execute and get out there and really push what we can do with this machine.
I think that you're going to have nothing but success with it, and exciting in the fact that, look, we've got a lighting company starting up here. I talked to McHugh David a few weeks ago. So he discussed his lighting manufacturing company that is going to be here, or is actually already kicked off here in Denham Springs. You have, James Adam McCants at SportNCenter, and he's they're manufacturing all these things now, as far as, well, not manufacturing the actual mouse pads, but they're putting all the decorating. Thank you on those items, and that's all being done in house. So the time frame actually shrinks. Absolutely. Because you don't have to wait for it to come in order to do it. So the time frame, big factor for impatient people like yours truly. It can never be fast enough for me. Trust me. Yeah, just what you were saying, I'm totally unreasonable.
I'm really excited about us partnering with Southern Light Solutions with McHugh, because there are so many different things, not only with just laser engraving, but also through the signs that we make and other promotional products that would be fantastic having a good, reliable source for LED lighting that's also going to be economical as well. So
locally.
Right,
the best part, what this whole podcast is based off of. These are all of us helping each other. And that's what we want to do. You know, one of us succeeds, all of us succeed. And if we all have that attitude, there's really no limit to economically what Livingston Parish can become.
Absolutely.
SportNCenter in Denham Springs is your one-stop shop for team sports equipment, school uniforms, and promotional goods. Conveniently located next to the Antique Village since 1977. SportNCenter, your business means everything to them because your name rides on everything they do. And it is something that obviously we're all passionate about, but I'm very excited about the backlit acrylic. Yeah. I like that a lot. I would love to be the guinea pig on that. Just throwing that out there right now. So thank you for bringing all of this by today. I really appreciate it. We always have a good time when we sit down and talk. And what I want you to do, you'll come back soon. Maybe a good time to be right before Christmas or something like that, right before Black Friday. And maybe James will come up with some sort of Black Friday discount or something where, hey, you come in here on Black Friday and, you know, you get 15% off or something. I don't know. I mean, pick a number. 100% off. Free. It's all free.
Yeah.
I'll see if I can talk into that.
It'll be free the Sunday after Black Friday.
Yeah. Very good. Yeah. So thank you very much for coming by. I want to thank McHugh David. He engineers this podcast and he keeps the little bit of hair I've got on my head left, which it is actually non-existent. But if I don't shave for a couple of days, I get it. I get the bozo thing.
I'm not seeing anything.
Trust me, on the sides, it's like bozo. It's crazy.
I can relate. I can relate.
Definitely want to thank you, James. Adam McCants, for coming by today. The Livingston Parish News for the space, and all you listeners and viewers for your support. Please follow me on all my social media, and thank you so much. We have actually hit, James, 700 subscribers on YouTube.
That's right.
That's fantastic. Only a month and a half ago, it was less than 100. I don't know why I deserve to have that many people following me, but I will absolutely take it, and I thank you so very much. I would like to thank my sponsors for this show, of which SportNCenter is one.
Yes, sir.
I could not do this without all of my sponsors. I thank you very much. If you're interested in sponsoring Local Leaders of Podcast, you can reach out to me, via the phone, or you can email me at jim@paintpodcast.com. If you're interested in getting our newsletter, I do a newsletter called The Weekly Leader. Just kind of highlights the guest I've had on for that particular week, gives you great information on leadership. All you got to do to sign up is go to paintpodcast.com and click sign up for the newsletter, or reach out to me and I can get you that information. Keep an eye out for my next guest, as Ray Bajoram with Premier Credit is going to be in here. We're going to be talking about this long-standing finance company right here in Denham Springs, and their history within the community. Very interesting story there. And until next time, I am Jim Chapman, reminding you to love your community,